Namaskar. Good evening, everybody. This is Professor Mani welcoming you on behalf of the Bombay Management Association. On behalf of all our past presidents and my colleagues on the Executive Committee of the Bombay Management Association, it's indeed a pleasure to welcome each one of you to this very special offering of the Bombay Management Association, the 10x Scale Up Conclave. This is a conclave which was conceptualized 2 years ago when our then president, Dr. Murtaza Khorakiwala, in association with the very eminent Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, conceived this entire concept of how entrepreneurship stories can be shared. And that is how they coined the entire concept of 10x scaling up so that one can succeed in the business cycles. This program has grown from strength to strength. Last year, we had this program at the World Trade Center. And I think this time we are having it at the International Zoom Convention Center, where we have people from all over the country who have assembled. We have a couple of registrations from across the 7 seas, and we hope they do come in despite the time zone differences. A very special welcome to all our distinguished panelists, our keynote speakers, and we are all very excited to get into the learning process with all our distinguished speakers and welcome all the participants. To inaugurate this conclave and set the ball rolling with his views and his ideas, we have with us Dr. Rahul Mirchandani. Good evening, Rahul, and welcome on behalf of the Bombay Management Association. Welcome. Namaskar. Good evening. Rahul is a PhD from the Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies. In fact, we all love to call him Professor Rahul Mirchandani because one of the major activities he spends a lot of time beyond his business requirements is to teach. He has curated courses for the IIMs, is part of the core faculty of SP Jain for the family managed businesses, teaches at NMIMS, and the list can go on. I'm almost reminded of the good old Tata Steel ad, which used to say, "We also make steel." So sometimes with Rahul, I believe he also works for Aries as their chairman and managing director. Aries, as many of you might know, is the leader in micronutrients nationally and internationally. And Rahul has grown this company from what it was, a small startup organization, an entrepreneurship firm that was started by his parents, down to the global giant that it is today. Rahul is also very active in the Confederation of Indian Industry, has been the national chair of the CII Young Indians, and is very actively involved in dialogue across governments across the world on several issues related to entrepreneurship, sustainability, and ensuring that India truly becomes the superpower that all of us dream it should be. An appropriate choice to set the ball rolling for this BMA 10x Scale Up Conclave. Welcome, Rahul, once again, and may I request you to deliver the inaugural address. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Mani, for that very generous introduction. I must say that Professor Mani is my guru, so he has taught me a lot of what I know. And it has also been a pleasure to interact with BMA at various times and also with ITM and various other business schools. So thank you very much for this invitation and to all of you for joining us. My focus this evening is going to be really giving you some stories in terms of how I have giving specific examples as we go along, sort of conceptualize the scale up of Aries. Aries was a very small organization finding its scale up ambitions when I joined it about 23 years ago now. And it's very proud that from the day I joined till the way we are today, we are 25x what we were on the day I joined. So, and we have been doubling almost every 3 to 4 years, and that is something that we hope will continue in the given future. So I believe that a lot of my stories are going to come from personal experiences that I have shared in the field. Just to give a little bit of idea, Aries Agro is a leader in specialty fertilizers. We do not make the commoditized versions of fertilizers, but extremely customized, very, very focused range of micro fertilizers and secondary nutrients. What we do is we take the chemicals and we put them into an inert form. which is basically makes them non-reactive and therefore not harmful to the environment. And we also customize this for over 107 different crops. Last year, we had the privilege of serving 9 million farmers across India. I have the privilege of leading a team of 1,200 people. And of course, we are present today in 26 states and in about 6 countries globally. So this is just an idea of who we are, what we do. Our focus really is on nutrition. We are not a plant protection company. We don't sell poisons. We do not sell seeds. Just to give you a context, we're highly specialized, very focused, and therefore what I'm going to share are experiences of customization, experiences of scaling up within a very niche market, and also to make sure that all of you can draw from the experiences, which may not be, in your case, agri-related, but you could use some of our stories as nuggets of inspiration that you can use in your own businesses going forward. So that's really the context that I'm going to share. So this is really who we are, what we do. I had the privilege of, like I said, leading the organization for over 2 decades. And I want to start at the very beginning. When I began, I came back from my Australian MBA, having even forgotten my Hindi. And of course, the realities in a rural market was something which were fairly alien, simply because I was the CFA MBA, Australian returned MBA who had come top of the class and therefore thought he'd conquered the world. And the very first farmer visits that I made actually taught me the reality. And I will always share this when I always begin sharing experiences. There was this one farmer in Punjab who taught me the value of field work. And I think I want to start with that. We cannot do the scale up unless we know, touch, feel, and experience our product in the field. I remember after going to this farmer in Punjab, it was the peak of summer, May 1999 specifically. He heard me for about an hour, not because he knew who the hell I was, but because he respected my dad and my company. And at the end, he realized that I had all the bookish knowledge that I had gathered. And he asked me to open the windows. And he said, can you recognize the crop outside? And I had no answer for him. And because it was mustard and without the yellow flowers, it looks like any shrub. And therefore, and the answer he gave me after he heard me for 1 hour, figured out I had no clue what the reality on the field was. He said, "Jab ye pata lag jayega, wapas aa jana." And that one farmer who really, who really brought me down to the realities of field work and said, listen, I can have all the bookish knowledge in the world. I could be the top of my class and all of that, but I had not touched, felt, and experienced my product and its workings on the field as a second generation entrepreneur. And that was perhaps the first learning I had for scale up, is I would not have understood my product. I would not have understood the market had that farmer not brought me down to earth. And he really laid the foundation of my 20 to 25 days a month that I spend in the field today, is because I realized that in working in 26 states, the dynamics are radically different. Every 200 kilometers, our country changes. And unless I was in the field and understood the realities of this market, I would have never been able to scale up 25x without understanding that. So that's the first nugget I would definitely like to say, is touch, feel, and experience your product, and not the way you and your R&D team believe this product works in the laboratory or in these ivory towers that we end up sitting in, but the realities in the rural experience. Of course, the other thing is farmers have over the years given us some of the best scale-up ideas. Another thing is, again, coming from customer focus, is once I understood the market and I spent the first decade doing nothing but field work. But what I realized is some of the farmers come up and give us scale up opportunities and ideas that none of us understand sitting in, even in the best of R&D minds. I'll give you a couple of examples. One of the farmers told me about his primary problem, which was people went and told him 5 gram use karna, and he didn't understand what the concept of 5 grams was. And what we of course could have done was give him a little spoon that the whole world does. But what we realized is if we had to shock and awe the market, we had to ensure we do nothing that the rest of the world does. And that is something in the last 23 years in business. If the world does it, Aries Agro does not do it. At least we don't do it in the same form that the world does it. So when the world was providing, little spoons to measure that 5 grams, we went to Italy and we brought water-soluble packaging to India. Today, our flagship brands sell in those 5 to 10 gram sachets that self-dissolve in water. Now, imagine a farmer somewhere in rural Chhattisgarh taking a 5 to 10 a water-soluble sachet. That is a 1 spray tank dose. Doesn't have to measure the 10 grams. Just has to throw it in his spray solution, and it self-dissolves, leaving no plastic, no aluminium foil. And the sustainability of the product carries forward to the packaging. But for the farmer there in rural Chhattisgarh, it is not chemistry at work. It is jadoo. And when jadoo happens, he calls the village and his mama, chacha, bhatijas, bhanjas, and all of the whole 9 yards. And I don't need to ask for word of mouth publicity. The scale up opportunity that is provided by these kind of shock and awe practices, which we have been doing continually in different ways and forms. And one of the ideas I did give you was this farmer coming and telling me, "Mujhe 10 gram sikhao hota kya hai? Aur ye 10 gram ko main sahi nahi dalu, to my field is losing out. I am losing out, either I'm spending more or I'm using less, and both are wrong. So can you teach me this 10 grams? Now, I could have taught it with the little spoon, but I said, no, that will not shock him. That will not make him feel we're awesome. What will make him feel is awesome is giving him something he's never experienced before. And this entire experience economy concept that many of us read in management literature was something that we did apply live in rural markets by providing water-soluble packaging. And today it still continues to remain a very integral part of our promotion. Give him something that gives him value and also saves wastage and carries the sustainability idea, not just as a notion, as a figment of someone's imagination, but really reality in action, visible for a farmer to look at. So that was another scale-up opportunity. Can we shock and awe people with the kind of experiences we provide? I provide a second idea, again from the market focus. Amongst one of my thousands of field visits happened to be to a dairy farmer. He was using one of our milk boosters for dairy cattle. It's called Buno milk. Now, it's a herbal milk booster. Any of you who've used Ayurvedic products will realize they don't smell that good. And we didn't have one herb, we had 16 herbs, which means it was 16 times the stink that you would otherwise get. I literally used to have absenteeism in the factory because the workers knew that Buno milk was going to be produced on that day. They will not turn up because it used to smell that bad. Now, I had, of course, at that time gone to this dairy farmer after the first insult where I did not know what mustard looks like. I went to the dairy farmer. I said, I know what a cow will look like. I said, bhains to pata lag jayega hota kya hai. And I went to the dairy farmer and he puts this ugly face, makes an ugly face, puts a rumal on his nose, and with a stick, he's opening my pack. And I wonder what's happening now. This is insult to injury, you know, it's like, what's really happening here? And when we opened the pack, I realized how bad that product used to smell. And I said, "Ye product chalta theek hai?" He said, "Bilkul acha chalta hai ji, lekin bahut badboodar hai. Aur hamare log usko haath pe lagana chahte." So I come back and tell Dad. Dad was still with us by that point of time. I told Dad, I want to put butterscotch flavor into this. And my dad thought I've gone completely mad. He said, "वो गया है, पता नहीं ये गर्मी में आया है, he's gone little सटिया गया आदमी." And at the end of a very long conversation, he says, "Do you know that the cows don't have any taste buds?" I said, how the hell do I know what the cow has? This is not for the cow. This is for that man who's putting money on the table and is feeling pathetic doing it. So my dad said, "Karo jo karna hai." Now, when parents say "Karo jo karna hai," it basically means "Mat karo." But he didn't say "Mat karo," so I went ahead and did it anyways. And today we've used sensory branding that you would otherwise use in a cafe coffee day or a Starbucks, that basically brand with the senses. When you enter Starbucks, you don't need to see the brand. You realize that you are in that environment. We provide that today with Buno milk. And today this is being taught at IIM Bangalore as one of the world's first applications of sensory branding in agriculture. And we still have this product in our range. And we have managed to brand with that just the smell of butterscotch has become the signature for Buno milk and helped us significantly scale up that brand because it was having a primary problem of not being something that people would like to kind of touch, feel, and experience. So again, look, talking about the first three ideas that I did give you, one, of course, I had to understand the market. There is no substitute to that. I had to get into the realities of what the market was looking at. The second, shock and awe branding works. You've got to create innovative ways to shock your customers out of the living daylights, because we are in such an overcrowded, hyper-competitive market space that unless you make a niche for yourself by shocking people using these kind of techniques, it becomes difficult to stand out. So this is one thing that we did. And of course, third, sensory branding and the use of the experience economy. The learnings from creating experiences, even in an FMCG or a commoditized, a seemingly commoditized brand of fertilizers, we managed to do these kind of techniques. Another couple of examples, of course, when you talk of scale up, and this is coming further down to recent days, and Professor Mani has been witness to this. 4 or 5 years ago, you would have all remember that we had one of the worst droughts, 2 consecutive years of droughts in India, and we, of course, were facing tremendous problem of getting targets from our sales team, because they were just not having the motivation or the wherewithal to commit to big numbers in terms of targets, and we had an issue of getting commitments. So what we did is we said, now we've got to shake people out of this inertia. And I took one of the biggest risks I have ever taken, which is really bring everyone to the Mumbai Stock Exchange. Professor Mani was there when we did that. And we got 800 of our top customers to Bombay Stock Exchange, and we did the first flash sale in agribusiness. Agribusiness never had a flash sale before. You had flash sales on Amazon and Flipkart all the time, but we attempted it for the first time in Indian agribusiness, where we brought 800 people to the room, which are our top customers. We sat on the trading floor of the Mumbai Stock Exchange and opened trading for our product in a place which had the aura of something larger than life, and people coming in from various parts of rural India. Of course, for them, sitting in that location itself was a elevating experience. And we opened a sale for about 2 hours, but we had 200 crores of booking in less than 45 minutes. And this was people who committed orders with signed undated checks. Because obviously we couldn't ask for money because it was a bad year, but we said, no, give us a commitment of an instrument and we will deposit the instrument on the date on which the bill is due. Now, what that really happened is it changed the way, the dynamics of how Aries does business. It went ahead and created an order book, which until then we only would wait for the monsoon and kind of realize ki barish gir raha hai, so let us kind of have the when will the sales happen. But we created an order book. We had a year of orders in hand. We had payment instruments, which obviously helped us have some sort of certainty in terms of deposit date. You'll call the guy will say, "Do din late dalo," but at some point he'll not keep you coming back to his shops. That was really some certainty of payment. We were able to plan our inventories better because we had signed orders, and we were able to plan an entire supply chain more effectively. And we got a 75% conversion of those orders, which basically became the next level of scale up. And in 2016, after that flash sale, we have run flash sales every year. And it basically, our entire business has gone using flash sales now. Basically, we get commitments in April and we fulfill them throughout the year. It's helped us tremendously scale up manufacturing, helped us bring supply chains in order. It's helped us give standard rates in the whole year because we get standard raw material prices based on those firm commitments and a much better payment cycle. So this is the second learning that we did. Flash sales work, something that was never done in agribusiness. We've now done replicated every year since then. This year in the lockdown, we took our flash sales digital. We had a digital flash sale. Rural India surprised the living daylights out of us. Professor Mani was again there when we did that. And he saw farmers connecting on charpais in literally parts of the various parts of the country. 3 hours non-stop conversation. They were listening more attentively than they would have in a physical room, guaranteed, because nobody had used this platform before. And at the end of that 3-hour conversation where we announced certain offers, etc., they booked almost 600 crore of product entirely digitally. So digital, of course, works. Rural India has become very digital. Recently, we've moved all our farmer training digital. Again, our training for scale up. Today, we run all our farmers meetings as branded Fasal Sabhas digitally. The recent one we did on watermelon actually has 32,000 farmers connect from across the country on just to listen to our experts on watermelon. And this happens on YouTube every week. Fasal Sabhas every week happen at different crops. So this is again a very important scale up. Is now today apple farmers I meet in Himachal says, "Aao ji mat aao, hum online dekh lenge." And this is something I would have never 6 months before realized that farmers would ever look at. And they're not only saying it, they're listening, they're booking orders online, they're making payments 100% digital, their orders are completely digital, and our entire business, thanks to COVID. In fact, I say thank you to COVID because it's made us agile, efficient, and digital. Jo main danda maar ke nahi kar paya, in this 1 year, COVID has made us completely digital, and that's helped us scale up tremendously as well. So that's again a couple of ideas. Another, of course, thought I want to leave you with is do not underestimate the power of rural data. We have used very successfully artificial intelligence, machine learning, many of these in customizing our products and services in rural markets. Today, we use AI and ML to predict what the farmer will use on their field based on certain weather and other parameters. And we have perfected the art of making predictive analytics for farmers to actually get better services. Today, farmers can sell photographs of their crop and get my machine server to actually tell them what is wrong with it and also make recommendations. And this entirely is also done digitally. So I think use of AI and ML is going to change the dynamics again will help us scale up. Another thing I want to, of course, talk about is when we talk about product quality. Professor Mani said, let's talk about quality as well. And according to me, quality is a given. But I want to talk to you about how we actually deliver value, because quality delivers value. And I think in terms of value, what we are doing is, as a company, we have focused on customization. It's helped us scale up to 107 different crops. And we have focused on reducing the cost-adding features and retaining only the value-adding features in the product. Now, in the process, I will not give paddy something that a cotton will require. I will not give a sugarcane something that a coffee crop will require. And therefore, I have eliminated all the unnecessary features which a coffee crop will need and retained only the ones that will be useful to the farmer. In the process, I have been able to provide a customized solution at a very significantly lower price point without compromising quality. This really is another avenue of scale up, is customization and eliminating cost adding features and retaining just the value adding features and giving it precisely again and again, giving it precisely in the same form again and again in every consecutive season. So I think these are some of the thoughts I definitely wanted to share with you. I'm going to just quickly summarize them and I'm open to questions. The first is geographical scale up. You have to learn the geographies. You've got to understand the market. I think there was no substitute to that in my early years. Digital scale up is the next wave. We have managed to go aggressively digital in the last few months, thanks to COVID. And of course, this is really becoming much more prevalent. Customization is a massive scale-up opportunity. Reduce cost-adding features, retaining only the value-adding features. Shock and awe strategies work. Just shock the living daylights out of your customers. Use things that make them talk about you. And there will be nothing will stop you in the village. I mean, we even did things like get President Obama to meet 5 of Aries farmers and dare someone talk ill about Aries in those 5 villages because a son of that soil got to meet the President of the United States when he was in India. So I think that's again a scale-up opportunity. I mean, there's no scale-up. That's 100% scale-up in a village just by making someone meet President Obama. Also, we had AI and ML. Don't underestimate the power of data. Because we are using it very successfully. And of course, the last bit is that we've got to move very fast, be very agile, listen to what the market wants, and make sure that we keep delivering it precisely again and again every single time. That's really my thoughts. Professor Mani, you had said 20 minutes. I hope I have not exceeded that. And I, of course, have stories to share for a lifetime, but I hope that this was useful. Thank you.
Wonderful, Rahul. Thank you so much. All the stories you shared will certainly leave an impact on us for a lifetime, I assure you. The manner in which you shared it so passionately and so enthusiastically was indeed very, very enriching. I have a couple of questions in the chat box. I thought I would use that to engage in a discussion with you. You know, there's so much talk these days about India and Bharat. And considering that you as a company seems to be serving more of Bharat, do you really think there are differences in these two markets? Would you share some of your experiences?
Well, I don't think that there is a. I don't believe there is a a very a deep divide. I do believe that the aspirations of rural India are as lofty as we have in urban markets. There is an exposure gap. There is not an aspiration gap. I think that's the first thing that we need to. They aspire for world class just as we do, but there is an exposure gap, and that's where we come in to provide that best level of exposure to these people. Second, in terms of value for money, I think both urban and rural markets demand value for money, and that is something that we must deliver. The supply chain is a big issue. The cost of getting things to rural India is significantly more expensive than in the urban setups, and that is something that, of course, I would see as a division. But otherwise, in terms of aspiration, in terms of ambition, in terms of demanding quality, I don't believe that there is any. In fact, they're much more demanding because, like I talked to you about, how a shock and awe can spread in the village like wildfire. You end up doing something wrong, and that will spread as fast, and they will throw you out of the market as much as they accept you. So I think we need to be very mindful of that as well.
Great. Would you also share what would be the impact of technology, the way it is changing so fast, on the future of micronutrients?
Well, I think AI and ML is something that we have started using. Like I mentioned, use of artificial intelligence to predict the deficiencies that will exist is something that we are actually now doing. I'm also looking at doing, customization to the level of a single farmer, where the final product will be made like Asian Paints makes their paint for a single home. You can actually choose the shade you want using a little mixer that they bring to your home. We're trying to do that in micronutrients as well. If a farmer gets the soil test report, plugs it into an algorithm that we will have an IP on, can a farmer get a customized nutrient for his field, rather than, I think customization to the level of unity is a very big technology enabler, which will be enabled by technology, and of course use of AI and ML to predict and analytically predict the farmer's requirements. I think these are two big takeaways.
All right, continuing on the same wavelength, you are a company which deals with farmers all over India. Do you notice that there are differences in their expectations, their behavior? Is there some kind of a cultural mismatch?
Well, I think it's interesting. In fact, this was one of my findings from my PhD thesis. I found that geographically farmers, there is no geographical change, but a crop specific change. A paddy farmer, a rice farmer, anywhere in India thinks the same. A paddy farmer will think differently than a sugarcane farmer, simply because the consumption pattern is based on income, and income of a paddy farmer per acre or income of a sugarcane farmer per acre is almost similar anywhere in the country. So therefore income gets related to consumption, and they start consuming things which are very similar to each other. So I would not do a geographic Maharashtra versus Madhya Pradesh segmentation, but I would do a rice farmer versus sugarcane farmer versus cumin farmer versus cotton farmer segmentation, because they all think very similarly.
All right, that I think makes a lot of sense, because here you're talking about differentiation based on the ultimate product that they are going to grow or they are in the business of.
Yeah.
I have now passing on to Indrapal Singh ji. He's a former president and a very senior industry veteran. Over to you, Indrapal ji.
Yeah, you have really modernize the business, so to speak. I think in a way there is nothing what other businesses such as durables or electronics would be doing that you are not doing. And I really love the way you said that you are using technology to customize your products to meet the individual needs. Now, here is a little out of question. I mean, if you want to answer, you answer, but otherwise not really. What are your views on this the 3 new farm laws that have been passed? How do you think it will impact your business or the farmers' incomes?
Well, I think the farm bills need to be understood well. In terms of the text of the bill, there are things that are actually beneficial, some are not. The farmers of Punjab and Haryana definitely get very much affected because they depend on the MSP, the minimum support price for the rice and wheat, whereas rest of the states, frankly, MSP was never part of the equation, but about 96% of the MSP actually goes to just those 2 states of Punjab and Haryana. So therefore, there is a massive protest there. But in terms of the rest of the country, frankly, it was an open market already. What the open market gets further deepened with the second farm bill, which basically provides you with market access to any mandi that you want or any private player that you want. The regulation of private players is an issue. It's not the opening up of markets. So the opening up of markets is very, very beneficial. However, will we be able to regulate private players is a second question, which of course needs to, we have to see how that law will take place. In terms of contract farming, I believe that law was very much, the third law, which is the contract farming law, was very much needed. In fact, in India today, we find that contract farming is something that will need to be much more prevalent. A lot of corporatization of farming has also happened, but I think what really this will do is allow farmers to pool produce and get a much better market access. But I believe the 3 farm laws have been misunderstood. There was no dialogue before the laws were implemented, and therefore the level of misunderstanding has worsened. In the text of the law, I think there's nothing wrong with them. However, in terms of implementation of the law, there are tremendous gaps, and of course, we'll have to look at how that is filled as we go along.
On your marketing techniques, I think I quite agree with you that there are no sort of dull products. There are only dull marketeers. I think with agri product being able to do so much, I mean, which is your products are essentially commodities, and you have made them into brands, and they're 2 very exciting brands for farmers, and having flash sales and other things which are normally for electronic devices and fashion and stuff like that. So I think that goes a lot to your credit. I mean, your company's credit, you and your team, and your dad also you mentioned, I think, for allowing you to do all these things. But I think it's a wonderful story. Another similar story I had read was about the Dawat rice. Dawat rice, I'm sure you would have known that it's owned by a family, and they have a huge turnover and a huge profitability as well. So somebody asked this gentleman who's the owner of the Dawat rice that what is your secret of the thing? He said, we know in every acre, एक दाना हम जानते हैं कि कौन सी rice का कहाँ हो रहा है और उसकी क्या quality होगी. So he said, we do the forward booking and buy those crops. And he said, as a result, these companies like Bunji and others, the big American food companies, who are into buying agri products, etc., they have, including ITC, they have not been able to succeed. And they are the single largest exporters of rice from India today. So I think the deep knowledge of market, and there is no substitute to that. You rightly mentioned that. And supporting with technology, financial strength of buying in advance and supporting farmers, etc. So my point is that if there is so much potential there, farmers don't have to be poor if it is properly implemented. Everyone can have a share in the income that is there, and it has to be implemented with certain degree of honesty and so on.
Yeah, in fact, when I was actually on the double farm income of the Prime Minister's the panel. I actually sit on that panel, and we actually said if agriculture is done right and effectively, it's actually the most remunerative profession that can exist. And I must, definitely my dad trusted me with my madness. So I think both dad and mom, allowed me to get those blank sheets of paper and, and do this craziness. But yeah, I think what's really exciting is that, farmers are willing to accept and pay a premium for something highly niche and well presented, just like any urban offering would do. In fact, one of the other things I must mention, since you talked about Dawat, is we run India's only customer loyalty program in agribusiness, which is called Khazana. And we have all our customers who earn points on every purchase that is made. And of course, that's a data mine of several years, which tells us exactly what is moving in every state, in every district. And of course, that's again a tremendous opportunity. Just like Dawat can know every dana, we also are able to track what's happening in different parts of the country.
Wonderful. May I also add that Rahul has been nominated very often as one of the most innovative CEOs of India as part of several surveys that have been conducted. And I'm sure all of us who are listening to him today realize that this selection was truly justified. Rahul, we are taking one more question in the interest of time, and that is, how is ENAM going to affect the farmers' income?
Well, ENAM has been there for a while. In fact, electronic markets have been, actually, they need to get further deepened. I can give an example of potato, for instance. So ENAM allows a potato farmer to take a photograph of his potato, and that goes on to the ENAM server. He gets to know what kind of grade it is, and using the photographs, and also is able to get an idea of which mandi nearby he's going to get the best price for it. So I believe ENAM will only deepen and improve market access. One of the biggest issues is many of us work on the supply side, where we increase the productivity of farms. However, very few people are working on providing market access and looking at the demand side. And the worst thing we can do is to increase supply of agri output, and there is no corresponding demand. So ENAM is going to ensure that the demand side gets plugged in, so farmers know exactly what demand is there, and using that information, if they start actually producing the right crop, then there will be a significant deepening in terms of market access. So I think that's ENAM is, I have seen it personally work very well for potato and works on other crops as well. But I think it's a very, very positive way of increasing incomes and working on the demand side of the equation.
Right. That was a very balanced reply, giving the pros and cons. I appreciate that. Rahul, as you sign off for this inaugural address, there are a couple of young entrepreneurs here, budding, if I may say so. Is there one single message that you would like to leave behind for them?
Well, I think one of the things I've learned the hard way, guys, is never do anything that other people have done, and have learn to say no when needed. So sometimes I need to say no to mom and dad, which is perhaps the hardest thing to do, because I really truly believed in something and I knew it will work. So if you truly believe that there is you've got that great idea, I don't think you need to stop for anything. Markets you have to create markets. Create the markets if you truly believe in the idea. I create markets every day. Markets for niche products do not exist. You've got to create them. So create those niche products, learn to say no when needed, and don't believe that you need to do anything that anybody else has done before. I think that's my little bit of wisdom to them, but I'm sure they'll chart a better path than all of us have ever done on their own.
Well, that's as effective as that 10-gram capsule of soluble vitamin that you were talking about right in the beginning. Before we wrap up, I'm handing over to Mr. Ernest Fernandez, a person with over 40 years of experience in marketing, having retired from Tata's last. Mr. Fernandez, a point of view from you.
Thank you. Well, there are many professors of marketing, but many of them teach from the textbooks. So I'm sure that Rahul, with his practical experience, must be a great source of inspiration to his students, because he's actually practicing the theory. Just one question, that in India, one of the banes of marketing is imitation. So you come out with a shock and awe strategy, and then can't a competitor copy you, and that too at a lower price?
Well, they can, and they always do. And like, imitation is the best form of flattery, but we change even our formulas every year, Mr. Fernandez. Our formula for cotton next year is not the formula we've sold last year, because we've taken 30,000 soil samples. We've taken 30,000 soil samples, and the customization, actually, he's copying my last year brand. I say tathastu and say, so be it. But we've moved on. So Aries actually is moving on every year. We reformulate based on the soil conditions, using the data mine that we have. And therefore, anyone copying my product is welcome to do so. We have already moved on.
Thank you.
So to say, we are already ready with the next surprise for you. So that's very well put, Rahul. As they rightly say, all good things come to an end, but I would here believe all good things have come to a pause. The learning is going to continue. We have 4 distinguished panelists who are going to now share their stories and engage in a discussion with all of us. Thank you, Rahul, for that wonderful start you gave us. I welcome in our midst our Vice President of the Bombay Management Association, Dr. Kavita Lagate, who also, as per BMA protocol, is the President-elect of the Bombay Management Association, and she takes charge of the Bombay Management Association in the next fiscal. Thank you, Kavita, for joining us as always. May I request you to please do the honors and propose a vote of thanks for Rahul.
It's my privilege to be here on this 10X summit, and what a inaugural address, Rahul. Thank you for that. BMA President, Professor RSS Mani, all the past presidents who are witnessing this summit, the executive committee members of BMA, and the keynote speaker, Dr. Mirchandani, all the other panelists who have joined, and all those who are attending, my warm regards on this afternoon to all of you. I think this 10X summit, a scale-up summit, is as told in the beginning, that has been for last 2 years, and in this pandemic situation also, what interesting stories we are going to listen. And Dr. Mirchandani, your storytelling, which you said that it will be forever, you can tell the stories. They are very inspiring and very, very motivating. I'm sure that technology and agriculture, if they get together, I think nobody can beat us. As a country, we can be the winners all over the globe. We can have our share, and for that, people like you can definitely guide the youngsters. And I know you are also very young, but then the youngster will get motivated by the work that you are doing. We are very proud of you and very, very thankful to you for coming and sharing your story. And I'm sure that this will be going for a long way for all of us at BMA to remember this experience of listening to you. Thank you so much for being with us, and looking forward to have you for other BMA conclaves and other forums also. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita, and thank you, Rahul. So I think you have signed on a virtual agreement with us that by virtue of your wonderful storytelling, you are a permanent invitee to BMA for our programs in future also.
Yes.
So thank you very much. And now we know why you are so revered and preferred in an IIM and anywhere else that you teach. Thank you once again. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to the next part of our 10X conclave. And that is a panel discussion where we have 4 young entrepreneurs. Kavita rightly said, I think today we are going to be listening to youngest people, and not all the senior citizens with gray hair on my beard like me. But nevertheless, it's going to be a very unique learning experience here today. And I'd like to welcome in our midst the 4 panelists for this evening who are going to share the story of their lives, the story of their business ventures, the story of how they scaled up. After which we shall also engage in a charcha with them as to what more secrets they forgot to tell us, and we will extract it from them through the questions from our audience. I'd like to first welcome Sabina, who is here. also Farhat, followed by Harshil and Jai Vaswani. So we have 4 of our panelists here. They may be across different screens. May I request the panelists to please put on your videos so that we can escort you to the primary screen. Jai, can you put on your video, please? I can see Farhat. I can see Sabina. You can wave out to everybody so that we know you are here. Allow this professor to take his old habit of taking attendance. So Sabina is here, Farhat is here, Jai is here, and Harshil is supposed to be joining us any minute. Can I double check if you're here, Harshil? All right, doesn't matter. He'll be coming any moment. The format we follow is very simple. We're going to just briefly introduce each one of these young achievers and ask them to share their story for a couple of minutes. In the meantime, feel free to note down what you would like to ask them towards the end of their session. So after 4 of them share their stories, we'll have an orchestrated conversation with all of them and try to discuss a little more about how they managed to scale up 10x, as we would call it. May I first introduce to you Sabina Bhanpurawala. I actually was hoping that my colleague Kiran Yadav, who introduced us to her, would be here this evening. He's unfortunately stuck in some meeting and he's outside Mumbai limits and he's not able to log in, is the message he just shared with me. But nevertheless, on behalf of the entire BMA family, welcome Sabina to this 10x Scale Up Conclave. And thank you so much for being part of this learning journey with us. Introducing Sabina is very, very simple for me. I pick up from where we just spoke to about Rahul. She's one of those who did her MBA from the FMB, the Family Managed Business Program at SP Jain Institute of Management Studies. And she's a 2nd generation entrepreneur in her family, taking the family to greater heights of success in this business over the last 17 years. She is the CEO and marketing head for Foam Home. And I'm sure many of us know that this is a specialty brand which is into mattresses of various types using modern technology. She in fact has a very, very strong advocacy area, and that is encouraging women to enter family businesses. And this is something very, very special that we read about Sabina. And I'm sure that her 19-month-old daughter is going to follow the footsteps of her very successful mother after we hear a little more about Sabina's success story. Welcome, Sabina, and we are very eager to listen to your story. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, firstly for having me here. It's amazing to be a part of this. My first question to you, of course, was I'm not sure I'm worthy to be on this panel yet. And I think the more I heard Rahul and read about Farhat and all of their achievements, I was pretty confident this was not my right place. But I do hope that through my journey, I mean, if there's any takeaway that people can take, I would love that. So yes, my name is Sabina Bhanpurawala, and I'm the 2nd gen entrepreneur in a family business that was started by my dad. We're a mattress manufacturing company, which was started in 1976. And well, the company has a very interesting journey, and because the topic is 10x, it kind of makes me look at the company very differently as we speak. So I think it's very interesting for me too. The topic is quite interesting. So we started as a trader in mattresses. I mean, in India, if you understand, the mattress industry is at a very, very nascent stage. I mean, we're still teaching people the importance of sleep. So that's the kind of industry that Foam Home belongs to. And the way we worked was, of course, we carved our own niche and we created our own market. So we are not a mass brand. We have a niche clientele. Let's say we cater to people who think sleep is important, who value sleep, and these are the more well-traveled, more aware audience that we really cater to. So yeah, going back to how it all started. So the company started as a small shop in 1976, and of course, one thing being common is that we constantly have innovated and we constantly try to introduce new technologies in the Indian market. So even back then, the family was very, very clear about the kind of products we were launching, and like Rahul said very clearly that you don't give people what others are not doing. Do something that's different, or you're just going to be part of the herd. And I think that was one philosophy that has always kept foam home very, very, I would think way ahead of the Indian mattress market, almost at par with the international standards. So yeah, we started in 76. I joined in when I was about 15 years old. So I attended morning college. I did my commerce from Sydney. And while I was seeing most youngsters my age were doing a lot of other things, I chose to come and settle down in our office. And that was my beginning, really. That's where I started my journey. And my primary role when I entered the business was, and this was interesting because, when I entered the company, I think what I did was I sort of gave a different perspective to the way we looked at our own brand. Because we were like, we called ourselves a mattress shop, which I don't think, completely defined us, because we were basically, we had to look at ourselves as a company, as a brand, in order to create ourselves as a company and a brand. And I think that was the starting point of really what I thought I had to offer back to my company. So that's what we did. We underwent rebranding, and the entire showroom had an upliftment. The entire display was changed. And then, of course, because of that, we had to professionalize a lot of systems and, also create a team. So the problem is, being in a family business, there is always this, a hire on the basis of mercy over hire versus hiring on merit. You just have your some cousin join in because he needs a job, or some distant relative who needs it, and that's how you build your team. And I realized that was not going to help. If we had to scale up, we really needed a certain set of skills which we required to kind of get from outside. So I think team building was something that was also something that I kind of drew our attention to, that we're going to need a proper team that's going to lead us to where we want to be. That was a bit of my contribution when I got in. And of course, then I got into the marketing of the brand, expansion, of course. So again, when you're talking about scaling up, there always are attempts to scale up, but not necessarily they all go right. So I think I probably have a longer list of the times I've failed as compared to the ones I've succeeded in, because, being a niche player, you have your limitations, your resources are limited. So you kind of have to work within your limitations sometimes before you can really take the plunge. So I tried my hand at, dealers, distributors, then also franchisees. So we had about 8 franchisees, which we ran for about 3 years. Sadly, the pandemic, had really had a lot of disruptions, and we had to close these franchisees down. But I think sometimes such decisions are only, they're only so that, you can then focus on maybe something that's going to be much more fruitful, because that's what we saw, that this is not working, rather than continuously trying to make it work. Let's accept that this is probably not something, or maybe it's not the route that's going to work right now, and let's try and put our energies to another set of it. So what did happen was, because the company's been so old into the mattress space, my father was able to create a mattress technology. Now this is interesting because this happened almost about 5 years back. So he basically developed a mattress. It's a mattress technology. It's a completely different design of a mattress, which literally reinvented the mattress. Now for him, it was just another product that was going to be added to the display in the showroom. But what I realized was, that in India, it is, and especially I think with the digital space taking charge, it's so easy to copy things. And suddenly, something that's really, really valuable just becomes a commodity. So we went ahead and we actually globally patented that mattress technology. Now here we're talking about a really mundane product, but here is like an opportunity which, can actually take us to global levels, because that's the plan we have. So the technology is called Ergo Shell mattress technology, and this is a completely different, it's a design of a mattress, but more than anything, it has solved the problem. So in India, if you understand, the moment you say orthopedic mattresses, what people think is of a rock hard bed. Now, if you look at what youngsters want, they would love a cozy bed. I mean, who doesn't? Leave alone youngsters. Who doesn't love sleeping onto a nice cozy mattress? But in India, this is very, very unique to India. We believe that hard is good and soft is going to be damaging. So we realized we had to create something which is going to be a balance where, people don't need to compromise on comfort in order to get support. So the whole design is based in such a way that we've divided the mattress into blocks. And the blocks basically are giving dedicated support to various parts of your body. So, instead of dipping into a mattress, you evenly sink into the mattress. So that's what ErgoShell technology is all about. And I think what's something we are very proud of is that, the world looks at India as a nation jahan pe abhi bhi gadde pe so rahe. They sleep on cotton mattresses, they sleep on coir mattresses. And a technology that is now patented in 20 countries to come from India was something very unexpected. Of course, we're still looked upon as really, have they done it? It's an Indian company. So that is, of course, going to be a challenge to break that barrier and have them interested in it. But okay, we've done it. And so when you talk about scale up, I think now when I look at this particular junction at where we stand today, firstly, I think it's something to know that scaling up like this can happen in any industry. So saying an excuse that, my industry will not allow me to grow like this, I think we need to revisit that thought. Because if it can happen to a mundane product like a mattress, I'm pretty sure it can happen to any. Having said that, I think it's also very important to know your limitations when you think of scaling up, because I think the 10x figure can mean different to different people. For me, if you ask me, 10x is reaching the maximum potential of what I think my company can achieve. It doesn't have to be a number. Does it mean I have tapped every opportunity? Does it mean I have, reached where I think my company deserves to reach? For me, that's 10x. And I see this particular opportunity that we have right now as something that can really take us, because it's a technology which we're looking to license to global mattress manufacturers. And now I think with the pandemic, where physical movement of goods can be an issue, here is an idea. So it's basically a technology. I don't really need to move products. It's just licensing, So I'm just glad that this idea was pandemic proof and it's holding true even on the other side of the pandemic. So yeah, that's really my journey and what I could really share about the 10x concept from what I have learned so far. Professor Mani, I hope that was useful. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, are you with me, Sabina?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Did you face any gender biases, which are so typical in India, when you entered this business particularly? And we'd like to hear a little more about that.
So it's obviously a question I'm asked almost every time that I appear on screen. To be honest, sir, I don't like to look at it as I'm a woman in business. I just tell myself I'm in business. And I think it's important because if I feel that, what anybody else feels doesn't really matter to me. I think it works for me, and that's something that I would tell most women to do. This whole thing about women face obstacles and women, I'm pretty sure men do too. It's just that we're a little more vocal about women. But I think I wouldn't want to, make that a big issue. Think of it as another obstacle amongst many and kind of just maneuver around it.
Wonderful. I think that's very well said, that you don't want to think of it as an obstacle. You would find your way around it. Why this question assumes a lot of significance is we have these stereotypes that women will do certain kind of work, men will do certain kind of work. And therefore, I think any number of times this question is asked and answered, at least we'll reinforce the message very strongly that there should be no gender biases when it comes to deciding which business one wants to get into. Like we always say in lighter vein, the best master chef are women and the best women designers are men. So really speaking, there is no scope for gender bias, really speaking. Wonderful, Sabina. I think that was a lovely sharing from you. We'll certainly come back to you for our charcha. But now it's time I move on to Jay. And let me tell you this much about Jay. Jay by nature and of course by his passion is from the arena of music. So if you're going to wonder that we have a very special musician in our midst, yes, perhaps. He's full of music. He loves his music. But out of that came a passion, out of his interest in being a DJ. He looked at what could be an area of business he would get into. And perhaps for the younger generation who are present here today, and some of us who have children of the younger generation, perhaps what appeals most is this wonderful thing called fries, or what is called French fries. And thus was started J in Churchgate as an outlet where you would have French fries, as they were always called, peeled, cut, and fried to perfection. I'm sure at 5 p.m. in the evening, this is all very mouth-watering, but trust me, when you listen to Jay relate his story, that will be even more interesting than the wonderful Jay fries and the milkshakes they are so very famous for. Most of us would be aware that they have many outlets across the city, and Jay is the person who has actually made this magic happen. Thanks to our colleague on the executive committee, Sri RSR Murthy, for introducing us to Jay and facilitating this contact. Murthy sir is here with us this evening, and I'd request him if he would like to say hello to Jay before I hand over to him to speak up. Murthy sir, are you with us?
Hello, Jay. Nice to see you on the BMA platform. Thank you, Professor Mani. Thank you.
All right. Over to you, Jay. Let's listen to your kahani, which I would say is mouth-watering.
Thank you, Professor. And thank you to Mr. Murthy for having me. So this is the first time that I've ever done something like this. So please excuse me if my story is boring. And so anyway, my name is Jay, and I'm 33 years old. And in 2012, I started a QSR brand called The J. The J sells fries and milkshakes, and we pioneered the fries in a cone concept, which you can see on my t-shirt over here. That's just an illustration of what our products look like. So we were actually, the story is kind of filled with a little bit of, I mean, no, not a little bit, a lot of ignorance, a lot of overconfidence. And now we're moving on to humility and gratitude. I got this idea about 10 years ago when I visited Brussels and Amsterdam. The concept of serving fries, or as they call them, chips, in a paper cone is very common. And they usually do that and they top it with a variety of different sauces. You can choose between maybe 15, 20 sauces and make your own fries. So the first time I saw this concept, I think my mind was blown. And I had never seen fries in that light before. And of course, I love French fries and everyone loves French fries. But I don't think I ever saw them that way, because fries were always something that was served on the side of something else. And in Amsterdam and Brussels, these tiny chip shops only sold chips. So fries were the hero product. And I was lucky enough because that my family owns a small shop in Churchgate, which is right opposite HR and KC College. So I thought that something like this would do really well in that location. So when I was in Amsterdam, I was at a particular chip shop, and while I was ordering, I asked the man at the counter, I said, "Would you like to open in Bombay?" And his reply was, "No, but you can do it. It's very easy." So I said, "Okay." And 2 years later, I opened the J in that same spot. And I remember on our first day, we did a sale of 580 rupees, and all my customers were my friends. I think they were my building friends. And we also started the shop in a very DIY manner. We used wooden tables, no interiors, no seating, just home equipment, because I had no idea. I was not from the industry. I had no experience with food. Obviously, before starting it, I did some home trials. The one thing that I always love to do, and I still love to do, is I love combining random things. So I'm sure none of you have tried a combination of maybe rice and ketchup. or if you have, you might find it disgusting. But my point is not that I like rice and ketchup. My point is that I like trying different things. And I think that's, that curiosity is what really drew me towards this industry. And I thought that how can I take fries as the hero product and combine it with various different flavors? So we started selling pizza fries, nacho fries, burrito fries, uh, all kinds of flavors you can think of. And but of course, you would think that by opening across the street from two colleges, business would be great. But actually, it wasn't. Because, I realized later that colleges closed a lot. And I think classes are only about 200 days in a year. And the rest of the time, students get leave. I don't even want to tell you because I'm sure you know this better than I do. So we were actually closed when college was closed, and we were actually losing money. And I think if the shop was on rent, I would have probably closed it down after a year. But because it wasn't, and because luckily I was lucky enough to have it as a family owned property, we kept the business going, and we kept trying different things, different combinations. And I think for the first 3 years, time flew by. And actually, during those 3 years, I got a new partner as well, who joined me. And the reason I looked for a new partner was because I was so frustrated with the business not doing well. So I met someone who was also looking to work with food and said that he would help me run the store. So I was very happy to bring him on board. But anyway, fast forward first 3 years, there was the turning point in the business. And there was actually an Instagram food blogger by the name of Mumbai Foodie, who still exists. And they actually posted about one of our products in 2015. And at that point, we were barely using social media. We had no idea. And like I said in the beginning, we were ignorant. And we were ignorant to a lot of things. Ignorant to running a business, bad with accounting, bad with managing employees, didn't do any research on cost structure, didn't see
Jay, we are not able to hear you. Jay, your audio is not reaching us. Rahul, just confirm. Is that right? We are not able to listen to Jay.
Yeah, we just lost him a couple of minutes ago.
Okay. So we'll give him another minute to get back. I think he's had some network issue. No worry. So while we wait for Jay to get back, I'm sure he'll get back very soon. You're welcome to put in your questions in the chat box. We've already heard one of the speakers. We are now listening to Jay, and we have two other young achievers who will be sharing their stories, after which we shall be happy to have the discussion with all of them. Sabina is here, of course. I'm only surprised that even Farhat has dropped out, I guess, because of some signal issue. She's not here on the screen. All right, I'll double check. Farhat, can I request you to put on your video, and in case we are unable to get Jay immediately, we will move on to you to share your story. All right. Farhat is here and I can see Jay also just getting in. Should I say is रुकावट के लिए खेद है? That's sometimes the difficulty of technology. All right, Jay, just unmute, please, and you can speak on. We lost you in between. Please unmute. Go ahead, Jay.
Am I audible now?
Yes, please go ahead. We lost you, but you're back. Welcome back. Continue.
Okay, sorry about that. So I don't know where I got disconnected, but I'll just keep moving on. So 2015 was the turning point for our first business, where in the same year we had doubled our sales essentially from the single store that we have in Churchgate. And then things changed because customers started coming to us and asking for franchises. And this is where I actually can empathize with Sabina, because so we were, again, coming back to my ignorance, we didn't even know the real meaning of a franchise at that time. But we had so many people who came to us and I guess they wanted to share our success, and we were overwhelmed. So before giving our first franchise, we said, okay, we're not sure. Excuse me. So we'll wait for a while and we'll run this store for some more time and we'll see how things go. But then during that time, customers started coming to us and congratulating us on our second store. And we were confused because we didn't have a second store. And then we found out that somewhere in Vilepale in Mumbai, another brand had opened up, and they had actually poached my first employee who had quit maybe a couple of months before that. And he obviously cited different reasons for quitting. So we went and checked out that store and we found out it was really busy, doing very well. And as my brand is called the J, now I feel I'm marketing that other brand, but that other brand was called the VJ. And essentially it was a vegetarian version of what we were doing. So people thought that, okay, the J is in Churchgate. Now they've opened a vegetarian version in Vilepale. So they've called it the VJ. So we were really upset because it turned out that they were doing as much sales in Vilepale as we were doing in Churchgate. And as Dr. Rahul said, imitation is the best form of flattery. I don't think we could see it like that at that point because we were so angry, and I think greed kicked in at some point, and we couldn't believe that someone else had stolen our market share. So that I think sent us on a different path, and a different path to scale, which actually stemmed from insecurity and maintaining an outer scorecard, whereas we should have just continued doing what we were doing, and I'm sure we would have, managed things out anyway. So we ended up opening our second store in 2016, 4 years later, 4 years after we opened our first store. And then we also gave our first franchise in 2017. But then in 2017, things escalated very quickly. We opened 25 stores in 2017. We opened 29 stores in 2018. And those 2 years, we had rapid expansion, which was a combination of company-owned stores and franchise-owned stores. I think somewhere down the line, we lost track of what was important, and we were only focused on the number of stores we had. We were focused on what other competing and similar brands were doing. We were insecure that we would lose our market share. So we actually gave very little importance to the boring but important things like our processes, like our HR processes, like our marketing processes, like our operations processes, and our accounting. All those things took a backseat, and we were only focused on the number of stores we had, our top line. And then before we knew it, the company started losing money on a monthly basis. And that's when reality hit us. And we realized that we had crossed the sweet spot and we were no longer in it. And we had too many stores. I think we had opened maybe about in total 65 or 70 stores in a span of 2.5 years. And this was also not following a deep expansion strategy. So they were all not in Bombay. We spread out wide. And we didn't think before doing it as to how we would be able to manage stores. We had set up stores in Bangalore. We had set up some stores in Gujarat. We even went to Delhi for a brief period. So anyway, we spent 2019 was the year of consolidation, where franchises that weren't working closed down and company stores that weren't working were also closed down. And right when 2020 started, we were at a very good place in the company. The brand had about 40 stores in total, and we were profitable. And then came COVID, which virtually destroyed the hospitality and the travel and tourism industries. So from 40 stores, we came back down to 20 stores, where we are today. But I would like to end my introduction or my speech rather on a positive note, to say that COVID has actually pushed us to change the form of our company, wherein now we operate on a 100% variable model or a variable cost structure. So none of the rentals that are paid are fixed. None of the salaries that are paid are fixed. So the only fixed costs that we have are raw materials and utilities. So irrespective of what the future holds or what COVID holds, or if there is or there isn't another lockdown, we will for sure continue to remain profitable. And I'm very grateful that we were able to reach this position with the company after everything that we have been through. And I think that's it. And I would like to end it by saying the last 3 years have been fantastic for me. I have learned a lot, and I have also learned the importance of patience and humility. And if I was to tell anyone else, give anyone else advice of if they wanted it, I would just ask them to maybe slow down a little bit, because I think the world is moving too fast. And we think that we can do too many things in a short period of time, but our brains are not like smartphones. We have really ancient technology in our heads. So we need to slow down and take fewer but qualitative decisions every day. That's it.
All right, Jay, that was really very, very inspiring. And it was very nice to listen to you and understand, despite the ups and downs that you have been through, I think the smile on your face is still very reassuring. And that's a hidden message you've given everybody in this group, that sometimes business cannot always be a success. There may be a roller coaster, but I think the challenge is to keep smiling and find the way out. Yep. There are questions coming in for you right in the chat box, which I am trying to collate, and we'll come back to you to have some discussion on the same. But now we'll move on to our third panelist to seek her views and her storytelling based on her experiences. May I request Farhat to please put on your video so that I can introduce you to all our participants. She too had a little bit of network issues, but she said it had been resolved. Farhat, are you here with us? I think at this minute, I'm unable to spot her. All right, then what I'm going to do is take the liberty of what is doing a little bit of switch in the sequence. Good evening, Harshil. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Professor
And
Mani.
once again, good evening. Nice to see you this time digitally. We met physically last year at another
Yes.
event at the Bombay Management Association. But I
Yes.
guess we are all adjusted to what they now call, or they have stopped calling, the new normal, because it looks like it's almost becoming a part of what we should be expecting. So
Yeah,
welcome,
I'm
Harshil.
lucky to follow
forward
my
to-
good friend Jay. Very prolific entrepreneur and a great speaker, and I'm lucky that I'm in August's company.
Wonderful, wonderful. You said it. We've been having some wonderful sharing of stories, and I noticed Farhat has come back. We'll double check that her audio is okay, in which case we'll allow her to continue sharing her story. Farhat, will you double check? Yes, can you?
Yes.
Hi, are you back? Is
Fine,
your
yeah,
audio
fine.
okay?
I don't know what happened. Suddenly, I'm fine. Is that, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We still have a difficulty. We still have a difficulty in the clarity of your audio.
I don't seem to, there's something wrong suddenly, as technology will have it. There is something wrong. So I am on a phone hotspot. So I presume it should be all right. You can't hear me clearly. Is that it? Is this clearer now?
No, we are able.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is clearer now.
Okay.
This is clearer now. So we
Will
will
be fine.
continue with, yeah, we'll continue.
Fair
In the
enough.
rare event you drop out again, we will then try to have Harshil share his story and then get you to come back to share
Yeah.
your story.
Sorry for
But
these
right
guys. The technology was perfect till now, but it chose to get off at this correct moment. So can't
Not
help
to
it.
worry, not to worry. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce someone who is a bee farm and subsequently did her management studies at the Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies. Spent 20 years in corporate pharma in Wockhardt and Abbott. Subsequently went on into the edible oils, international food, and fresh cheese business. I'm sure once again your mouth is watering because we are now going to have one more speaker who's from the food industry. I guess we got a sample of the fries and shakes that Jay is so famous for. But let's understand a little more about what Farhat has done. She launched in 2015 along with a family member, Go BIRYAN, and I'm sure with 8 outlets in the city, with the fact that they have another brand, Silly Chili. They are one of the most popular QSR brands, both on Zomato and Swiggy. Mouth-watering, isn't it? Let's hear a little more about the same from Farhat. Over to you, Farhat.
Hi, Professor. Thank you so much. I hope I'm clear. Actually, I had 4 slides to share. I don't know if you could just allow me that, because I'd just like to share something about the brand before I go on to what we really did. Is that possible? That will I be able to share? So I can just do that. It will take me about 4 or 5 minutes of that. And I will
as long as your
let me
video
know if
supports
it
you.
is available.
Yes.
Yes, yes. As of now, you can share my screen. Can you see it? Yes. So I just like to take people to about like 4 or 5 minutes, which sort of gives the brand story. And then what I'd rather share about is, I think what Professor Mani and we spoke, and so did Kiran, who's not here right now, is more on the transitions from corporate to getting into entrepreneurship, because I have a different story from a lot of the young blood, as you talked of the youngest kind of people around. I'm, in terms of what else brings you into this entrepreneurship game. Just to share about what our product is, give me about 2-3 minutes. I guess the video lagged a bit because of the internet, but just a quick one on what our story is. For those who don't know, everybody loves biryani. Zomato, Swiggy go around promoting it all along that it's India's most ordered item on the food aggregator platforms. It also becomes a good meal for people as a wholesome meal. It's also a celebration. We started the brand way back in 2015. We had a small little launch before that. There have been process improvements. Today we operate about 7. Yes, pre-lockdown, we were probably at 2 other locations which had to change shop because those areas weren't worth enough for the franchisees to go ahead. We did a Pune experiment as well. Today, the difference is what we did, I think, is because we started the biryani delivery business way before Zomato's and Swiggy's started online delivery in Bombay or in India. That's a difference because at that time, everybody did not realize that we wanted to create a product that was available on the fly. We still have about 20 biryanis, all vegetarians. We still have 6 different varieties of vegetarian. So the normal myths, whether there is really a vegetarian biryani or not, we try and dispel that at a lot of places. What we've done, interestingly, is create something which is essentially talking about various pack sizes. So based on whatever people want at any point of time of the fly, there are a whole lot of pack sizes available, a small, big, bigger, larger, based on the number of people. Lastly, just one more slide, just to have an idea, while we are on the Zomatos and Swiggies of the world, and while you have your own online platforms where it can be ordered, and we welcome phone calls at any point of time, number of meals that really need to get done. I think I'll just knock this off because it's just better to be off the screen. Just a second, give me a second. Nonna, can you just help me back here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just stopped the share. Yeah, sorry. I just do this way. Yeah, I'm back. So let me actually share the journey of moving from corporate to entrepreneurship as it would be. While internationally and everywhere we have been, if not second generation like Rahul and Sabina right now, is probably in the range of 25 to 27. At this point of time, it just becomes completely double that age. So it's a completely different kind of picture. People normally move into that kind of stuff onto entrepreneurship for 3 basic areas. It's either freedom, it's the flexibility, and it's the financial potential. Freedom from having a boss, flexibility of being able to have your own hours and time to do things, and the financial potential, of course, which everybody loves, specifically in the food business. People normally forget the other F that exists in this business, which is failure. Because I think whatever the ratios are across industrial domains, essentially, I think the number is like it's 80% or 75 to 80% fail in terms of the first year. So that's a small number. We just hoping that we'll make it to the finishing line with the only other F there is, which is Farhat itself. When you make that transition from the glass house, it's nice to see entrepreneurs with this. You know, in my company, मैं तो प्यून से लेके president तक हूँ, but वो प्यून से president में बहुत दुख होता है, which is essentially stuff like, yeah, okay. So essentially, things like that. But when you need to start paying your own phone bills, when you need to see, worst case, you need to start buying your own phone, take your Mac to the Unicorn Center yourself, it's all very difficult to do. Your clothes change. Again, what Sabina mentioned in terms of getting staff, it's very tough, because while you're sitting in office and you had the entire management trainee arm that could come to you and you could choose, and you were the one who would actually go out and select. In this case, it's become a lot more difficult because not everybody wants to really join you. Those are the struggles that really comes. What I would also like to say in this thing is that what we had was, what Rahul mentioned was again very useful. The do it yourself or go through the pains of actually doing it. He mentioned about fieldwork, but in our case, it's a lot more about doing everything yourself once. So anybody who joins needs to go and cook biryani once. Probably that's the only time you cook it actually, but subsequently, it so much helps you once you understand the process. 2 is we took all the phone calls for 6 months virtually every evening, irrespective of what the holidays or whatever there was. We picked up the phone calls. This was the days before Zomatos and Swiggies started. Classically, being able to talk to the consumer, doing your upsells, understanding his pain points, listening to complaints, all of that is a major learning ground, and we can really probably imagine that this thing brings in. Even the physical act of, packing the food yourself, packing your food and basically being able to give it to the delivery boy that came in and basically take that forward was an entire learning process that actually went. While one makes this transition again into doing a business of your own, one wonders where the holidays went. I mean, you did this because you thought you'd be flexible and be your own boss, but suddenly, where are the holidays? And strangely, in a business like ours, which has food as its core, the holidays, the actual day you do more business. So you better be there. Diwali, New Year's Eve, and the day there's an India Park final cricket match, probably your food delivery is more important than the delivery of what's happening in the last over. There's also additional trauma because you go through the police, the licenses, there is GST, there is excise, fire inspectors. So you have the fire in Kamla Mill. So irrespective of what's happened to ours and our own licenses, you're shit scared because there's a lot that's going to happen to your business. There's a whole industry out there of BMC complainers. So there's a whole lot of struggling that one needs to really go through to be able to understand all this. Along the way, while we were expanding, there were tough choices to make because we're a bootstrapped company. We're not an investor-driven organization because we chose to first get the product right. It's like, it's probably the flip side of what Jay mentioned. We spent a lot of time trying to perfect the product. We've done the back ending, we've understood, our guys measure salt. Normally the cooks at each location are not allowed to even taste too much of the salt in the actual biryanis because it's done by grammage. Similarly for chilies. We know that in winter, the chili becomes a little more pungent. So you need to take a little less. So it's all formula driven completely so that the product does come out the same to everybody. We go through an entire process. The reason why we've always stored high, like we know for sure facts, like, even Domino, the Jubilant guys who are coming up with a biryani brand that's all India. We probably are the brand they've chosen on a food tasting parameter to be the ones to copy. So it probably is because this entire process of making each box look like a biryani handi. I'm sorry you all can't see me, but I don't know what's really happened. But, in terms of we delayer every box or every vessel of biryani we make so that it gets into different layers. And then basically, we sort of put it back and reconstruct every box to contain the right amount of meat quantities, right amount of vegetables, the right masala layer, and write that down to a gram. So every box gets refilled back with the grammage. So you know that you will have the same product, the same time everywhere you go. Along the way, there are some tough choices one makes, and yeah, like everybody's had their own share of issues. Franchisees, partners, partnership that one sorts, payment cycles, all of those, you go through that entire patch. We went through a process of franchising out and realized over a last 2-year, 3-year period that no franchisee loves your business as much as you love it. So there's always some short-changing thing that happens. So either we should have had probably an investment that came in a lot earlier that made us have a team that could go out and manage those franchisees, which we didn't really do that well apparently, or we needed to be able to just be able to do our own stuff better, because we know the love that you need to give into every product or every activity that needs to be done. So what we've done is we've stepped back and we've literally gone the way and repurchased our franchisees, so as to speak. So it's back to completely into our own arm. At the end of the day, while everybody loves food and talks about biryanis and all, and people, I think, come up with this convention that the food business is a very profitable business. Honest to God, it isn't. No, it's the big daddies out there, which is Zomato and Swiggy, which now slowly have taken up your entire purchase kind of, the entire sales happens virtually on that platform. Of course, we still have some on our own platform, some people who would like to call, somebody who needs to have an office party, somebody who wants to do a offsite and wants to carry boxes, those people call. But the rest of them, everybody would do a Zomato, Swiggy. Those guys have high commissions, they have high, they make the discounting a lot more. Their participation that you do, so all the Zomato and Swiggy ads that you'd see on TV, somewhere they're poor souls like us who are funding those, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to do that. Packaging has become quite a difficult proposition here. At first, we were one of the few guys who gave the product in a good pack. Now there's so many elements. Also, this whole story about plastic. We had to move into plastic that was higher grade. So we sat with the manufacturer, got into the same boxes that you get your natural ice cream, which is particular grade. So that's what we use. So because that allows the microwavability, that allows the reusage of the containers, and that makes it much easier than an alu foil or a paper box that would go. The other things that need to do is along the way you choose partners, I said correctly. There are people who like you and people who don't. So simply put, like Swiggy, we do a fairly good business with Swiggy. So they have an internal concept of having their own product, which they promote. So we have a partnership with them.
Farhat, we have a problem with your audio again.
Which actually has helped us to maximize revenue out.
I think it's the same problem again. And this time what we're going to do is give us some time to come back for the Q&A session, and we will move on to Harshil. Harshil, good evening and welcome once again. Can we have your video on so that we can request you to begin your sharing? Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Harshil to you. This is indeed a pleasure welcoming him back on the BMA digital platform this time. If I were to introduce him, he's one of those young entrepreneurs who started in the year 2015. And he started an integrated digital-led marketing solutions company. And over the last 5 years has become a preferred digital marketing partner to the likes of Jio, Pidilite, Godrej, Xiaomi, Amazon, P&G, just to name a few. With a modest billing of 5 crores to 70 crores in 5 years is a great achievement, which has been led by Harshil himself. the founder of this wonderful organization called Schbang. His dream is to take India to the world, and that is the vision for his company. And through the Schbang network, they also try to give back to society by village adoption and skill development programs. Here is a person who has used technology as an enabler and has ensured that he can do his best, not only for his business, but for his country. Once again, acknowledge the support of our colleague on the executive committee, RSR Murthy, in making this introduction or reintroduction and inviting Harshil over here this evening. The floor is all yours, Harshil. We are looking forward to listen to your story.
Professor Mani, thank you so much for the kind introduction. And I, like you, I too would like to acknowledge and thank Mr. RSR Murthy. He's not just a member of the BMA committee, but also a mentor of mine. And I thank him for his advice and his support on a timely basis as I keep seeking his support. I think, so I think you've given a good introduction in terms of what we, in terms of broadly where we are as a company. I think the topic is scale up, really. So I think this topic works better from a perspective of, just trying to tackle Q&A, but I just set some context. So maybe we can, if you don't mind, Professor Mani, we'll go faster into the Q&A. So I'll speak for hardly 5 minutes and, maybe we can go do faster Q&A if that is okay with you, with your permission.
Go ahead. We are here to learn from you. The method is all yours. Go ahead. Okay.
So I would say that, I think 3-4 things that I want to just place on the table. One is like, unlike the other fellow panelists, I think what I am is I am a service entrepreneur and I deliver services on a B2B basis. So that is point number one. And the services kind of, I would also say that services is in a way an easier business to succeed in because, it's a low barrier to entry business. At last count, I think I had 12,000 competitors in this country. So it's a low barrier to entry business. If I count, this is a registered entity, but if I count the sole proprietors, I'm sure I will have close to 30,000 odd competitors in this business. So it's a low barrier to entry business. Anybody could set up a services company. You just have to basically incorporate and then you can win a client and you can do it. And also you are competing with freelancers as well. So that's one thing, which is it's a highly competitive marketplace. Now, within a highly competitive marketplace, what are some of the things that I did to try to scale from 0 to 500? One of the biggest lessons that I learned is that everything can be solved with growth. So everything can be solved with new business rather. So in a service company, what you always have to do is try to secure your next 3 contracts. Because if you secure your next 3 contracts, essentially what happens is that you can fill those seats and hire. And once a company has hired you, you can always go deeper with your services. So you can go wide with your services, but you can also go deep with your services. So once a company has hired you, you can always add more value to them and increase your service, delivery to that particular company. So in my example, what I did is while I started with digital marketing services with most of my companies who I serve, I also do their film production today because we have a 50 people unit, which is only focused on film production. I also do their technology production, which means I manage their websites, I manage their servers, I manage their cloud. I also currently do for them the deployment of their CRMs and their ERPs, because then I started understanding some of the challenges that they may be facing on an operational level basis. So I cross-sell a lot of services. And I think today's world for a services company should be jack of all, master of some, because you can actually have that capability where we have certain services which are mature enough, particularly in the technology and deployment space, where we've deployed certain services that are mature enough, where you can have skilled quality talent and certain process and protocol in place. The other thing that I tried to do as we scaled from 500 to from 0 to 500, and now we are trying to do 500 to 5,000, is that you always need to create process at every stage. So service company is all about process, just like, I try to treat my service company like a food company in that sense, because we have processes for pretty much everything: client onboarding, scope of work documentation, employee onboarding, 3 days of employee onboarding, you've got into a department, you need to fill in a particular department kind of test, a process for always on training, a process for a person to become a trainer. So, essentially for all functions, there is a process and there has to be easy access and availability of those processes. So I think, actually there's too much to encapsulate in shorter periods of time. But I think if I had to leave a couple of thoughts with all of you before we open it up to Q&A, is that I think service company is highly competitive, but at the same time, India has shown that service companies could be built into large global companies. So Infosys, TCS, Wipro, they are large global companies which have been built in the services business. When I started this company, I knew that in the creative and marketing and technology domain, there is no player like TCS, Infosys, or Wipro, and that's what I'm trying to build. Basically, a global company. I will not rest till we hire 125,000 people at least. So that is what I'm trying to build. Because I think it's a global opportunity. It's not just an India opportunity. And I think because we are the largest talent shop in the world, or the largest body shop, as some people like to call it from outside India, I would say we are the largest brain shop in the world. We can organize a company which has the ability to put 100 to 200,000 people who are essentially very skilled, highly creative, can combine creative and technology together to build a large scale global company. And, you have history actually, Isaac Newton very famously said, I can see further because I stand on the shoulder of my forefathers, because I stand on the shoulders of giants. And within all our industries, particularly in services, there are lots of examples of companies that have built great culture, great brands, and great processes, which we are basically trying to imbibe from on an ongoing basis. And we also then take the advice of the right kind of experts who guide us on how to structure a company. Like Mr. RSS Mani is one of our advisors. So we take the advice of the right seasoned professionals who have seen large companies grow to help guide the company in the right kind of direction. So that's what I will leave you with to start with. And then if there are any questions, then welcome to that, and I would love to answer those.
Wonderful. So that was another very interesting perspective, Harshil. As you rightly said, you are looking at a service. You're looking at something which is intangible. Though, of course, two of our colleagues did speak about the service that they provide, but whether it be the fries or the biryani, there is still something more tangible than what you're talking about. Because in this context, however well a task is done, still it is the service which is remembered more than the ultimate utility of the service that you provided. I'd like to first acknowledge the wonderful sharing by Sabina, Farhat, Jay, Harshil. The floor is open for questions. I have quite a few questions in the chat box. Those of you who still feel that you'd like to ask some questions, please push it across there. In the meantime, I'll request the panelists, please keep yourself on unmute so that when the question comes, you're welcome to give your response. If there is a specific question to you, then I will address it to the respective people. The first question is more generic, and I think that's a very, very important question, which I'd love everybody to share their views on. Farhat mentioned it particularly, but I'd still like everyone to share their response. Tell us in your journey, what was your response to failure when it came your way? Because I think that's something very, very important, that when we are talking about growing, when we are talking about scaling, failure often becomes a huge deterrent. How did you cope with failure as and when you encountered it? Question open to all. Request 4 responses in any sequence. 1 each, of course. Who'd like to start? Yeah, go ahead, Sabina.
So, like I said, in my journey, I think the number of failures has been far more than my successes. So yeah, it is especially when you look at them as a big list of failures, it's very, very discouraging. Especially I think in a family business, because you're already holding so much of pressure to perform, or a pressure to, be at par with your seniors. I think when you fail, it hits hard. So it did happen with me as well. I really was like, whatever I'm doing is just not working. Maybe I'm not, you just question whether, you're even meant to be an entrepreneur, whether you're even meant to be where you are. And I think then I had a talk with my dad, and in in one statement, he had something really nice to share. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So he just told me, that the fact that you're failing means that you're actually trying. You're trying a lot of things, and you're probably trying risky, unconventional things. So it's actually a good sign. And to kind of fail at an early age is good, because you still, they're not going to be very costly failures. You have enough time to repair. So I think it's nice, because now when I fail, I feel like, okay, I tried something that was not going to be easy and it didn't work. So let's move on to the next. So that's really how I kind of dealt.
All right, that's a very interesting response, and I think a very inspirational piece of advice from your dad. Jay, would you like to share some of your perspectives?
So I don't know. I don't think I view failure as an event, or as something that has happened that I've failed. I think things are more fluid. I think it's I think you just keep doing things, you just keep trying things, and some things work and some things don't work. I think I think that's just the way I see things. It doesn't really matter what has worked and what hasn't worked. I think everything is a learning. And there is a very thin line between something working and something not working. So it's not fair to get so hung up on a failure. It doesn't make, I guess I don't view it that way. So I'm also unable to articulate what I'm trying to say. I don't really think about it. I just keep learning and doing and learning and doing. And I think that mistakes, I look forward to making mistakes throughout my entire life, because I don't think that they should ever end, because again, then I will risk becoming overconfident, as anyone would. It's human nature. So I think things are more fluid than, just like you failed or you haven't failed.
Actually, failures, you get them, a lot of them. And most cases in these kind of journeys are always of a monetary value. So it's always that much, how much can you take? Because there's always a desire or thing that, okay, can I just shut this off and get back to what I was doing, which was better? Or was it very tough? Or it's a lot of it is dependent on how passionate you are about how this really can work, that, okay, I'll take this in my stride. Some of them become more expensive failures. And at that point of time, you need to have the heart and brain to be able to say no as well. We did that once, Carter Road, Bandra looks very hip and happening with all those joints that were over there. In our early stage, very, very early, we took up a Carter Road rental place. It was like a 2 lakhs a month rent when you barely set up business, and it had 100 other costs linked with it. It just didn't make sense. We were very lucky and we managed to get out of it very early, and we thank our stars that we did that. There were some other mistakes that were made which we could not leave because there's too much passion involved with that. So you keep hoping, yaar, kabhi na kabhi to ye ho jayega. So I think the little bit of brain over heart tussle needs to be correctly balanced. Otherwise, because it takes time to get out of it, but it's good to learn and be able to do that. The biggest thing is partnerships and people. So, when sometimes you get so hung up about that, okay, this is the good guy I've worked with, I'm going to set up, and he's the perfect guy. And that may be an employee, that may be a partner, that may be something else you plan to do an arrangement with. If it's not working, it's better to be out of it earlier than not. So even failures, it's a lot of whether decision making or financial or on a business kind, each needs to be viewed separately is what I would largely put it.
Sure. Harshil?
I think the others have covered it all pretty well. I would say that, I mean, the only way I often look at it is that you often look at failure, and I think most entrepreneurs are a little bit of a crazy bunch. You always you never look at failure, you look at failure as an opportunity. So you will always, I don't know, I've noticed this with a lot of entrepreneurs that when you fail, you'll spin a story of how it's a stepping stone to the next opportunity, So I would say if your mind does that, then you probably have the recipe of an entrepreneur inside you. That's the best way to recognize. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Sure. I think what I'm hearing
but
from
also
all of
sorry
you
but
is
also
don't
like
allow...
everybody else said it, it's not just that whimsical that failure is opportunity, but also then you have to have the the rigor and the wherewithal to convert that into the opportunity. So it's that brain heart which Farhat
Sure.
talks about. I think it's a rightly put.
Sure. So I think what I'm listening to all of you is don't allow failure to fail you, and look at it as an opportunity and try to overcome it and do something as an outcome. It reminds me of what someone had rightly said, failure is an event, not a person. And as long as we keep this in mind, that what can I learn out of this event and go 2 steps ahead or 20 steps ahead, life can become very, very comfortable in this entrepreneurial journey. Another interesting question for all of you is, you've spoken about failure. Have there been times in life when you were gripped with a fear? And if so, what was it and how did you cope with it?
Yeah, I
Fear
can go
of failure
on that
is
first.
understood, but there might have been other failures. Yeah, go ahead, Harshil.
Yeah, so fear was, it was actually this time last year that I was gripped with fear. That I think most of us would have been gripped with fear at this point in time because, all the billing stopped. We had a great month in March. I was looking at my profit and loss statement, and I had I think the biggest, kind of turnover that I'd seen in the month of March mid. It was looking like the biggest month that we had. And it was the biggest month that we had. And then comes April, and, between 15th March and 31st March, we had so many calls, and the business actually in the end of April, the business shrunk by 75%. So April billing was 25% of March billings. So there was a lot of fear at that point in time, saying that, what do we do? Because all of us had to do that. We had to renegotiate our rents. We had to consider cutting salaries. We had to consider, thinking about reducing operational expenses. So there was a sense of fear once I saw that billing sheet, and I saw, all the calls starting to come and saying, hey, now force majeure. So we have to stop our contract. We can't give you that 1 month notice. We can't give you that 3 month notice. So there was fear. And I think that normally when you look at fear, again, I think it's linked to that opportunity kind of thing, which is that failure to opportunity and fear to opportunity. So if you look at that fear as something that will consume you, then that might not stop. But often when you have fear, so it's a very interesting thing that, there was a spiritual master who taught me that all fear is basically linked to the fear of death. And essentially, if you link back every fear, it's linked to the fear of death. And the way to counter any fear is to take a view which is like 4 steps ahead of what it is right now. So you take the long view. So essentially, if you're worried about salaries next month, if you start visualizing what it is going to be 2 years later, where you see your company 2 years later, then that's a very easy way to overcome that fear, because suddenly you're not looking at the month of May, but you're looking at 2 years later, where this company is going to have 3 offices all over the world. So then you take the decision on the basis of that. Then you don't reduce the salary, you don't fire those employees, because you're like, sitting here is a workforce that I have, which is probably going to be able to be exported to Indonesia or Malaysia or Africa or Sweden. And then I say that actually I've got some great people. And then for me to rehire those great people is going to be difficult. And therefore, then I look at that fear as an investment that I'm making into the future. So that's my perspective on fear versus, how you counter fear.
Some more inputs? Sabina, Farhat, Jay?
I'll tell you, it's a very strange fear. I mean, not that it's been directly to work, but suddenly, it's probably also my age, probably compared to the other 3 people on this group, is, when you have 75 employees and you've got to pay them their salaries on time, and there are a bad month, specifically during lockdown, honest to God, I had some sleepless nights because you got to pay those guys. Not trying to be emotional or trying to say for the sake of it, but genuinely lost my sleep many months of the year, last year that went, because we made it a point whether we paid the vendors their thing or not. We didn't have business on the entire time. We were running a campaign which actually was for feeding the homeless, which was parallelly going on, which we were running a charity program, which actually Ernst & Young has recognized us as some of the best work for the last year in terms of doing that. While we did that, there was this thing about not being able to pay salaries fully on time. You have staff who's left their hometowns, like typically all restaurant guys are the same. They come from West Bengal, they come from Bihar, they come from Nepal, they come from Uttarakhand. They're all staying with you. So while you pay their food and you pay their staying and their water and their whatever there is, it's also that salary check because that's what goes home. And there was a struggle. We can't hide from that. The last year has been bad for everything. And there were things that we had to draw out of other things that we had to be able to pay those. But it generally felt bad because he said, that's like, it. Other than that, I don't think there's been so much in the fear segment, so as to speak.
Should I like to add on?
No, I don't think I have anything to add.
Sure. Another interesting question, and seeking your responses. If you were to start, and Jay, you can begin this time. If you were to start your journey all over again, what is the one single thing you would have done differently?
It's funny because I keep. I think it's what I'm doing now. I don't. I try not to spend too much time in hindsight. So whatever I want to do, in fact, so at the risk of sounding insensitive, COVID has been a blessing for me. Personally, it has been a blessing because I think it gave me the time to take a guilt-free holiday at home, where there was no guilt because it was not up to me or anyone, right? We couldn't work, business was closed, revenue was zero. So I wasn't guilty because it was completely out of my control. So I spent all of that time on myself. I was reading 7-8 hours a day. I was anyway. So my point is, for business, it was horrible. And it also gave me a lot of time to introspect to see what do I want from life, thereby what do I want from my business. So I got clarity on how I wanted. I thought about how I would do things if I could restart. And then I thought that, okay, COVID is actually giving me the chance to restart. So I actually changed a lot of things in my company. I closed down stores without feeling bad about it. And I think I am already on that path to doing things the way I actually want to. And just to give you some measurable examples, for example, we were franchising before, and franchising is something that we have permanently stopped ever since COVID. Funnily enough, the demand for franchises has actually increased for us, at least. I guess people see COVID as an opportunity to set up new businesses, but we decided to stop franchising completely, thereby actually, denying ourselves of a good chunk of revenue. So that's one step. And second step, which may be counterintuitive to the theme of this event, is I believe for my brand, for the J, that scaling up is good, but only to a certain point. I think that for my brand, being in the sweet spot, as I like to call it, would ensure long-term success. And it's how I can see that the J will be alive in 100 years. And I don't think I need to have 100 stores. I think maybe 5 or 10 or 15 may be the optimum number. So again, COVID has actually given me the chance to make what I really want a reality.
Great. Sabina?
So I think, and it's a struggle that I'm facing even now, and I wish I had kind of learned the importance and dealt with it then, but I wish I had entered business with a team, because so my dad started the business and then there was just me, and resources were very limited. The thing is, it kind of takes time for you to have like a comfort level with your team, understanding, what you require, what they can offer. That whole exercise takes time till you can really have enough confidence. Now, today, when I have a project at hand, I feel I don't have, enough people to delegate roles to who I'm confident will do justice to and perform. So yeah, I just think I'd probably invested a little more time earlier on in really developing a team for myself.
Great. I think it's been wonderful listening to each one of you, listening to your stories and the wonderful charcha that we had. I know we can go on, but we need to respect time, and I respect your time to a great extent, having come out on a working day like this. You can't say, like Jay was saying before, we are no more under lockdown and we are trying to now grope with the period between lockdown and unlock and relock and call it by any other name. But with so much of anxiety around, still, you were able to spare the time for BMA. We are indeed very privileged and honored to have each one of you here. And before we sign off, as far as this panel discussion goes, I have one concluding question to each one of you. And this time, I request the answer to be shorter than the question. And therefore, my question to you, for which I'm seeking an answer in just one word, request only one word. What is the secret of your success? I just want one word from each one of you. And the best answer gets J fries and go BIRYAN tonight delivered to your house.
That's fine. That's possible. but
Yes, anybody can go. Fastest finger first.
hard work, nothing else.
Hard work.
Honesty.
Honesty.
Yeah. Time.
Time. Would you tell us a little more about that?
I think we all underestimate the importance of time in everything that we do, because time is such an important factor that can easily be forgotten in today's world, and the effect of compounding, of doing the right things every day continuously. And I think time is something that, and the effects of compounding essentially is what
I understand.
would take it at.
Great. Harshil, just unmute Harshil. Unmute.
Yeah, so I would say, if I'm allowed 3 words. And if I'm allowed to say these words, I would say balls and clarity and faith.
What was the first one? I missed it.
Guts.
Guts. Okay. All right. I think as it often happens, we got a lovely collection of words. If you're going to be working hard, keeping in mind honesty, faith, with a great deal of clarity and guts, good times will follow, is what I read from each one of you.
Nice.
And thank you so much for these magical words, because what you shared today was a true story. You didn't try to dress up anything. You were very honest about successes and failures. And I think that's what great entrepreneurship is all about. Let me assure you, each one of you have won our hearts by your sincere sharing and down-to-earth approach to how you have scaled up your business. We hope and pray that you grow from strength to strength. And maybe in a couple of years from now, we might call you and ask you to talk about your 20x scale-up success in time to come. Thank you so much for this wonderful sharing in the panel discussion. Farhat, Sabina, Jay, and Harshil, we are very obliged to all of you for spending your time with us here and enriching us with your experiences. On that note, we will move to the third phase of this 10X Conclave. This 10X Conclave was conceived by Dr. Khorakiwala when he was the past president of the Bombay Management Association, and the title was conceived by the very famous Dr. Ganesh Natarajan. And legacy in BMA is such major events usually continue year after year. A committee worked on the entire design, of which RSR Murthy was an integral part, and so was Kiran Yadav, who is not able to join us here this evening. But based on the design, we also thought it might be useful to present a perspective from the banking industry. And here we have us here today with us, Shri Suresh Babu, a veteran in the field of banking and treasury. Suresh Babuji, can we request you to please put on your video so that all of us can have your darshan. So we have Suresh Babu here. I just bring him to our primary screen so that all of us can have his darshan. Good evening, and can I request you to please unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Mani, for inviting me to this elite forum of Bombay Management Association. It's a great pleasure to associate with you and share your valuable thoughts this evening. All these speakers are really very good, and it is very amazing to listen to their good experiences in this SME field, and it's a great learning experience. Thank you for inviting me, sir. Thank you.
Wonderful. And let me just take 2 minutes to introduce someone who's got about 35 years of experience in treasury, financial management, and himself been a very, very important and integral part of the growth and development of one of India's largest business houses, the Reliance Group, where Suresh Babu retired as Chief of Treasury, subsequently started his own entrepreneurship venture into strategic business development and advises so many corporations across the world, yet is a very compassionate human being, spending a lot of time on social work and trying to emancipate the cause of needy and underprivileged. A fine gentleman who is part of several academic institutions sharing his wisdom. Once again, a good suggestion from our colleague RSR Murthy, and it was a delight for us to decide that Suresh Babu would share a presentation with us on this entire theme of how financial planning, financial management could make businesses much better off. Over to you, Suresh Babu, to begin your presentation.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen.
Go ahead, it's enabled.
Yeah. Is it okay?
Please go ahead. The presentation needs to be open.
Yeah. Is it there? Are you able to see the presentation?
It is there. Needs. Yes, but it needs to be getting into the PowerPoint slideshow mode.
Right?
That's right. Go ahead.
Were you able to see?
Yes, please.
Okay, fine. Good evening, friends. And in fact, for the last 1 hour, I've been listening to all the good speakers. I think they have given me their valuable experiences on the field. It's a good learning experience because you are the people who are in the industry at the grassroots level. Whereas, me and Mr. Professor Mani, all are academicians. So we can only talk. Talking is different from implementing the ideas. That is different. Now I see in the next, I think 15 minutes, I would like to just discuss with you about the opportunities and the challenges for MSME sector. There are only just 3 points of my flow of discussions today. One is that MSME, the growth driver for the Indian economy, and what are the opportunities available, and so are the challenges. Friends, if you look at the revised criteria for MSME classification, MSMEs are today classified on the basis of the investment in plant and machinery and the turnover. So based on the investment limit and the turnover limit, they are classified into micro units and small units and medium units. Micro units starts with an investment of less than 1 crore and a turnover not exceeding 5 crores. And the small units, less than 10 crore investment in plant and machinery, and the turnover does not exceed 50 crores. And medium, they call as those units where the investment is less than 50 crores in plant and machinery, and the investment, turnover does not cross 250 crores. So these are the revised criteria for SME classification. And if you see the SME, they are the growth drivers for Indian economy in the sense that they are contributing today 30% of the Indian GDP. And they provide employment as many as 11.10 crores of population in the country. And they are also generating new entrepreneurs. So today we have 634 lakhs MSMEs, because this is a low capex. As you all know, that people can start with investment of as low as 1 crore rupees. And it helps to develop the industrialization in the rural areas particularly. And of course, they are into diverse range of products and services. And the most important thing is this SME today, they are able to manage the regional development and the equality of income. So these are the contribution that these SMEs are making to the Indian economy. And there are different opportunities, funding opportunities particularly. And these funding opportunities, I would like to just divide into 3 categories. One is the budgetary support given by the central government for MSME segment. And secondly, the indirect refinancing done or indirect finance provided to MSME through the banks, financial institutions, microfinance institutions, NBFCs, etc. And of course, the last one is the direct support, direct lending support provided to the MSME segment by the banks and all. If you look at the central government support, the recent budget 2021 and 22 has really given a lot of stimulus for the MSME segment, particularly the post-COVID period. And to start with, if you see, the budget earmark for MSME is simply doubled compared to the last year's estimate. As much as 15,700 crores of rupees is provided for MSME, and 10,000 crores corpus is provided for provision of guarantee for banks, against that loans exposed to the MSME group. And of course, 20,000 crores again is allocated, under subordinated debt for MSME segment. And then collateral-free automatic loans, they wanted to give it to MSME, and as much as 3 lakh crores is the budget allocated for this. And the equity infusion is also equally important, as important as the debt provision. For equity infusion to MSME through fund of funds, government has allocated 50,000 crores. And for new MSME registrations, there is a portal called Udayam for ease of doing business, where all these approvals are provided online, on a fast track basis. And the global tenders procurement is again, changed the limit to 200 crores. That is up to 200 crores. There should not be any global tenders. They have to procure this from the MSME segment in India. And last but not the least is the tax audit limit is again increased to 10 crores. So this will really help all these MSME segment. So these are these supportive measures provided by the central government through budget. And coming to the other funding support given to the MSME, banks, as you all know, they provide term loans for purchase of plant and machinery and equipment. And they do provide cash credit limits for working capital management. And they also offer bill discounting facility for discounting the bills up to the tenure of 180 days. And of course, non-fund based limits like letter of credit and bank guarantees are also quite popular for the MSMEs. And supply chain finance, to facilitate these MSMEs, to get the funding against the supplies made to the large corporates is another area where banks, are willing to provide. And for export-oriented units, there are certain facilities, pre-shipment and post-shipment credit facilities are offered by the banks to the MSME. And of course, the remittance services like foreign exchange, these are the other services provided by the banks. And when you talk about MSME funding, the two direct funding, StratBiz, that is Small Industries Development Bank of India, plays a vital role. Vital role in the sense that they have got schemes tailored are customized exclusively for the MSME segment, like equipment finance, working capital, and Make India soft loan fund and all. There are several schemes designed and customized, for the small and MSME group by the StratBiz. And coming to the central government schemes, as I mentioned, apart from earmarking, massive funds for MSME in the budget, government also is supporting MSME in a very big way by launching different schemes like employment generation program, credit guarantee trust for MSME, interest subsidy eligibility certificate, technology upgradation, and zero defect and zero effect practices, and of course innovation, rural industry, entrepreneurship development. And there are several schemes offered by the central government, but most of these schemes, they either provide refinance to the banks who are providing onward lending to the MSME group, or they're also providing some sort of subsidy on the total loan exposure taken against the MSME group. And coming to the other benefits that are available, or rather, opportunities available to the MSME, Mudra is that micro units development and refinance agency. Mudra plays a very vital role. Ever since its incorporation in the year 2015, Mudra has pumped in as much as 24,000 crores, for MSME by way of refinance to the banks, NBFCs, and MFIs for the loans, given to the MSME. And similarly, there is a venture capital fund. Those MSMEs who are looking for equity support can always approach this venture capital fund. And ever since 1995, this venture capital fund has supported 125 units. And most important point that we should notice is that 2 out of 5 MFIs that they have pumped in this venture capital have transformed into small finance banks like Suryodaya Finance or this Equitas, some small finance bank. These are the 2 small and finance banks when they really started like MSME, and they got the venture capital funding from this venture capital fund, and then they transformed into a small finance bank today. And again, there is another interesting opportunity available is that Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for MSME, where they facilitate the credit guarantee support for the banks for the collateral free advances given to the MSME. Banks do provide collateral free funding to MSME, but they in turn take guarantee from this fund for supporting business. And if they also provide collateral free and guarantee free loans up to 2 crore rupees. And so far, 43 lakh guarantees have been given to the banks against their onward exposure to MSME to the extent of 2.21 lakh crores. And there is one Receivable Exchange of India Limited. I don't know how many of you are aware of this. This is the first trade receivable discounting system available for MSME segment. It is an online platform where the financing of receivables of MSMEs are taken care. And this was set up in the year 2016. And so far, they have assisted around 4,000 units for timely payment of dues worth 5,500 crores. And there is another SMERA, that is SME Rating Agency Limited. Again, some MSMEs, they do get credit rated by this external rating agency. And so far, this rating agency has given rating to as many as 47,000 MSMEs in the country. And there is an asset reconstruction company exclusively for MSME advances. And this reconstruct REC, they acquire the NPAs from the banks, and they restructure the potentially viable units and suggest for liquidation of any unviable units. And so far, they started in a very small way. So far, the assets under management is only 400 crores. And there is another India SME Technology Services Limited. They do offer technology advisory services for those SMEs who are looking for technological upgradation and modernization of their units. And coming to the bank loans, there is a 3-tier process here. All the banks follow while funding the SME. First one is they understand the customer. They understand the requirements of the customer, and they accordingly offer the tailor-made schemes for the benefit of the MSME. And the second one is collection of the data. Data collection is the most important point for banks to assess the requirements of funding. And the data collection includes the KYC documents, financial statements, bank statements, collateral securities if required and all. And finally, the evaluation of the business potential and cash flows. Cash flows are also very important today. You see, securities is one aspect, but cash flows is the most important aspect. Unless there is an adequate cash flows, the unit cannot be made viable. So securities are not that important when compared to the cash flows. And finally, the eligibility criteria is examined and the sanction of loans are given. Now today, despite all these things, the bankers' perception is slightly different. What they say is that these SMEs are is a voluminous business, and they feel that the SME segment needs to be slightly what I suggest changed, keeping in view the requirements from different segments. So that is, first of all, small ticket size. Number two is highly operational cost. This is one reason why bankers are a little bit of shy in taking exposure to MSME as compared to large corporate advances. And they feel that this is the first generation entrepreneurs. They don't have experience, or they have very little experience, and they don't have much collaterals to support the loan requirements. And promoters' contribution in many cases is very negligible. And most of these SMEs are run as a family business with no succession planning, and they often ends with a lot of family conflicts. And of course, this is a very high risk because there is no credit rating, or rather low credit rating available. And there is a high rate of diversion of funds. Diversion of funds is the most important lacuna that is prevalent in this MSME segment that pulls down the bankers from taking any exposure to the MSME segment. And again, there is a weak and inadequate marketing, and they're globally uncompetitive due to lack of product branding and all. Because that means they don't catch up with the changing times of the industry. They still follow the old traditional ways of marketing. And I think that is one reason why these MSMEs are not able to compete with the technologically developed these large corporates or medium corporates. And if you really want to get your loan sanctioned from a bank on a fast track basis, so this is the guide for the MSMEs. The first thing is that tax returns. Most of the MSMEs, you see, they don't file the tax returns, and they don't show their receipts, and they don't show their income levels and all properly. But that is wrong, right? Because if you really want to expand your business with the help of any bank funding, the most important thing that you should keep in mind as an MSME is to file the tax returns properly and to have audited financial statements, because these two are the vital documents that assess the income potential of these MSMEs. And the GST returns. This will give you an indication to the bankers to judge your turnover levels, and accordingly they can assess your working capital requirements. And the bank statements, of course, this is also equally important because they wanted to see what is the average balance maintained in your account, and whether there is any funds diversion taken place, and whether the account statements are proper with the normal expenses and income levels. And of course, the collaterals, these are also important.
We have 5 minutes more.
Yeah. And CIBIL scores is also very important because that shows the credit history. And of course, listing on the stock exchanges is important. And today, if you see, out of 101 lakh crores of the bank exposure, 22 lakh crores is given to MSME. And NPA levels are also equally high, 8.7% for micro and 11.5% for SME. And what are the reasons for this NPA? If you see, one major reason is that diverting and siphoning of funds, as I mentioned to you, and lack of professional skills is another reason, and a low technology, cost inefficiency, and inadequate product branding, and failure to bring in the promoters' margin money, and delay in payments by the large corporates. And what are the key challenges today faced by these MSME is the lack of credit, non-availability of the formal documents, lack of collaterals, lack of advanced technology, and inadequate product branding and marketing tie-up. So what we should look at is that way forward is that leverage for the banks to support the MSME. There should be optimistic approach for loan appraisal and sanctions, and lesser provisioning norms, and zero risk weightage should be given for SME. These all are steps for the banks to take some holistic approach for lending to the SME segment. And e-lending platforms are also equally important. And alternate data is more important when the formal data is not available for the banks to assess the requirements of the borrowers. And similarly, the knowledge sharing of the good practices, and the forums like BMA, where they can share the good practices from among these MSMEs to develop the business practices. And model project cost and viability reports should be made available on various industries, and green channel for clearances and approvals. These are the certain things that are required. And finally, we should remember that it is not the strongest that can only survive, and it is not the most intelligent, but the ones who are most responsive to the change. When Mani asked me what is the single point success factor for the MSME, most of them said hard work, sincerity, honesty, and all. But according to me, the single word point for success of MSME is a change. You should change with the you should keep changing with the changing trend of the industry and abreast of the changing attitude. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. I think that was a wonderful presentation, very comprehensive. There are some requests in the chat box, Suresh Babuji, whether you would be ready to share your presentation with those who are interested.
Yeah, sure. You can just send
So
me
you
a
can-
WhatsApp message. I'll forward to them through WhatsApp or email. I can send you.
All right, no problem. So those who request, I will be in touch with you. Thank you so much. It was very exhaustive, and I'm sure there will be people who will reach out to you for your guidance based on the wonderful wisdom that you shared based on the rich experience of so many years. May I request you to please close your presentation, or I can also do that. No problem.
Yeah.
So that we get everybody back to screen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the concluding part of this BMA 10X Scale Up Conclave. We started by listening to an entrepreneur who scaled up beyond his own imagination. Still very young as a CEO and revered in circles of business and professional world. We heard the stories of 4 young entrepreneurs, each competing as to who is younger than the other and still trying to make an impact and make a mark. To wrap up, we had Suresh Babu giving such a detailed presentation on how the entire SME industry can do better with a certain amount of strategic planning and using the best facilities available with the banking industry. The cherry on the cake, or the icing of this entire conclave, is the valedictory address. And I'd like to invite our very own BMA former president, Mr. Vijay Jalan. Namaskar, Vijay Jalan ji. Welcome to this BMA 10X conclave. It is our honor that you are here this evening with us. All I can say about Mr. Jalan is he comes with a legacy of over 35 years of experience as an entrepreneur, starting from scratch, consolidating and building his organization to what it is today, a leader in the field of transportation, warehousing, and he'll tell you more, but leaders in this entire domain of warehousing, clearing and forwarding, cargo movement, not only nationally, but internationally. More than anything, a very fine human being, committed to a lot of activities in the sphere of helping the underprivileged and charitable projects. And for us in BMA, a wonderful mentor and guide. Thank you, Vijayji, for being here with us this evening. And may I request you to share some of the wisdom that you have gathered over so many years as an inspiration to all the young managers and entrepreneurs in this audience. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Mani. And may I say hi to Suresh Babu, who's a very dear friend for a long time. Hi, Suresh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, friends, I've heard partly some of these people speak this afternoon, and I was very impressed by the kind of knowledge sharing that you all did. And I, on my own, would now kind of share a few thoughts on my business that I grew with. And initially, I was into the export of textiles, which is not covered in that 35 years, which Professor Mani mentioned. But that textile business brings me back to one point when he mentioned that a good designer can always be a man for a women's garment, and I was one of them. So once upon a time, I used to export to the top stores of Europe and USA and give them the best designs of Indian handloom fabric created into a garment. And that was a business which I had to close because of circumstances, which will be another day when I can share about that. But those were the quota days, when the government decided to decide what to give to people who had to put what kind of quantity to export. And so you had production available, but no export orders, no export permission. So those were the days where we went through some, difficult times in terms of rules designed by a lobby of people who handled the government inside and out. Anyway, that's another story. But coming back to the business that I started again after the export closing is the logistics business, and primarily focusing on, cargo clearances from port and customs, then delivering it to the customer at the end. Also have warehousing, doing bonded warehousing, plus branching into other activities. So let me share a few thoughts. I do not want to give you all management jargon, but I will talk on basics today just for you people to understand that where it all came from. And my beginning thought was that when we ventured into a business of logistics, and the primary business was cargo clearances from port and customs. Now that was a very tough business because it was full of wrong things and good things both. So it had to be a niche that I had to set up myself for. And that niche was the point that I had to work on when we got into it, when we got the license to work on it, and we did work out on the niche. How do I make that place of niche for myself? And that is where we all as a team sat down to think about. And what we realized is that a customer is something that nobody in the business looked at. He looked at it only purely to give him that service, but not anything else. And we decided that even a MIS or the so-called reporting system was lacking in the trade. So first thing is we had a couple of meetings with our large corporates that we dealt with. And he said that your logistics department makes a statement of, cargo under various stages of clearance. He said, let me do that for you because I am handling it. So let my company give it to you in a format decided by you and me. And that was one very, very important point that we covered, which was like an eye opener as far as the customer is concerned. He said, thank God we've never had somebody to offer us this. Why should your purchase department or materials department create it? We are the guys who are handling it. So let me give you that report. So it was a weekly report sent on a regular basis to all our customers with their reference numbers, our reference numbers. So we were talking the same language when a reference was done to that little sheet of paper that we said. So that was one point that we banked on very well with them. Then came the other point.
Vijayji, excuse me, your video has gone off, sir.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, and then came the other point.
Sorry.
On the main screen, I can see you, but.
Okay. That now your video has come on, sir. Please go ahead. Sorry for the interruption.
And then we decided that most of the people in our trade did not have the knowledge of what they were dealing in terms of product, in terms of customer setup and everything. So we decided to create a knowledge base in our own office for every customer. So that we were very clear as to what product we are dealing in for the customer, what is the kind of time frame that they're looking at in every job. Every job had a different time frame. If it was a raw material, it was a different time frame. If it was a project, it was another different time frame. So that was another area that we looked at and worked on very strongly. And we created this kind of a reporting system which worked wonders for all of us. Then we decided to set a standard which was beyond the beyond ordinary. What we realized that most companies in the trade did not give that high quality service and high quality standards were not available. So we decided to make our own standards. We sat down with our customers for a long time in different companies, maybe Cadbury's, maybe Seat Tires or whoever it was, the large companies. And we sat down with them and said, what do you expect from us? So that gave us a lot of learning and we started working on those few parameters. The final analysis of a service business, of course, is that how do I get quality in terms of my service? So the main criteria for deciding what is quality of service is the time frame in logistic business. So what is the time in which I deliver the cargo? So we had started off in those good old days where things were very, very primitive in terms of customs, when port clearances and everything. Every step there was a hurdle. Those things were very, very much not under control. But whatever it was a 6 to 7 days is what we gave them as a time frame from the time it landed till the time it came to your factory. We in our team decided that how do I bring that time from 6 to 7 days to 4 to 5 days? That was the first target. And when we achieved that first target of 4 to 5 days, then we realized that we can still bring it down further. So we decided to go into some advanced planning, advanced working with the department and everything. And then we brought it down to 3 to 4 days. So that's the achievement that we did and which was very, very appreciated by all the customers that we dealt with. And finally, of course, all thanks to all the, EDI, the electronic data interface that customs and everybody started, with so much of electronic usage now, with so much of computerization usage, we have now virtually on a single day time frame. The lead time is less than 1 day sometimes. And this is the greatest achievement that has happened. But of course, with a lot of time and a lot of cooperation from various sections of the society, but we were able to bring it down. And I must give you share with you an example that happened recently, that one of our customer made one of his agent, and it was a large project. And this project company was dealing in large machinery projects of German-based company, and their agents in Pune decided to call me, and I was quite surprised. He said, "Sir, I'm calling you on behalf of so-and-so customer of yours." He says that his project machinery is at the gate of the factory, and I can't believe it. So I just wanted to confirm it. The reason why he was confirming is the customer was after him to send the engineers to install it the next morning. And they were surprised that how could it reach in one single day? And that, my friend, was the reality, and which gave us a lot of credibility, gave us a lot of pleasure to listen to such talk coming from a supplier of a company. So this is where we reached in terms of our level of service, and we maintain that. Project is something very, very critical. And we did a lot of big projects. And for me, I do believe if you can cut down on project time, that's the biggest saving that a company can ever have in starting a business. So that's why project clearances were given top priority in every case that we handled. Now, coming to the other point how do I use my technology? We were one of the first few companies who got into technology and upgrading of our system in the office, and probably first company to computerize our business. Records, data, everything was computerized way back when nobody in our business ever computerized. We were probably the first one to even send an computerized bill to a customer, an invoice. And the record keeping was all put into the system. What we realized is that saved us a lot of time and energy. Now, this was going beyond the ordinary again. So that is what I am saying. You have to continuously think beyond the ordinary. So that is one area that I thought I must share with you, because you guys are all upcoming and budding entrepreneurs, future industrialists, future leaders in the industry, in the business. So for you to remember this. And the other thought process that was happening during our days of computerization was, sir, why do you need to invest so much money on I think those days it was P3 and P4 were the computer jargons in the electronic business. And I said, he said, the kind of volume that you're doing, P2 is good enough, or P3 is good enough. The going time was for P4. And I said, why not P4? He says, why do you want to spend that kind of money? It's not required for your kind of volume. I said, no, but I want the best in technology. I don't want the older version. So point I'm trying to make is saving that 5,000 to buy a lower category computer would save that 5,000, but you're sitting with a lemon after a few days. Because what really happened in our own assessment was, if you bought a lower technology, which would meet your requirement, but you would be sitting with something which had no value in a few, maybe months or a year, because the parts were not available, the motherboard was not working, or something or the other was not working. So my request to you is never ever compromise on the quality of upgradation. You have to go for the latest always. And the pace in which we are today, looking at everything changing, the speed that we can see is unbelievable. So all the more reason what applied to me then has applied more now, because it is important for us to look at it from that point of view. So remember, technology plays a big thing for you in any business. I was also, looking at how do I constantly update, and what is the updation that I need to keep doing. So that, of course, was internal audit system. Doing fiscal discipline was the other thing that we looked at. And somebody said faith. And I said, I built my business on trust and faith also with the customer. Not only with the customer, but the employee, with the suppliers and with everybody who are our partners in business. We had to build that trust and faith that whatever we say, we mean it, and whatever we mean, we say it. So these are very important points, and there is no compromise. It is not 99%, it is 100% or zero. Integrity, faith, trust is 100%. There is no compromise even by 1%. Then you're zero. So that is on which we built, and we believe that worked very well for us. Strong fiscal discipline is the other thing that we set our standards on. And we said any supplier, anybody, whether it was a shipping company, whether it was a transport company, whether it was a warehousing company, everybody needs to be paid on the day specified. And we maintained that. Sometimes we even went before the due date, and we made sure that everybody was paid on the dot. And that was way back in the 80s. I mean, and we never made anything. We didn't even know what is post-dated checks. You know, in a lot of these trades, sir, post-dated, there's no post-dated check. I said, there's no post-dated. What is post-dated? It's a piece of paper. So if somebody talked about post-dated checks, it made my blood boil. I said, what are you talking? It's a piece of paper sitting in my, so you might have keep it in your office. I don't need it. Why would I sit on your post-dated check in my office? So that was one day, first day, principle number one, no post-dated check to be given, no post-dated checks to be ever received. Fortunately, our customers were of that league where post-dated checks never talked about. It was one or two times, one or two customers could have done that. But this is what is fiscal discipline that we followed. All our accounts were audited, and when we grew a little bigger, we decided to make an internal audit also. Now, these were not requirements of the law those days, but we in the service business insisted that let us do an internal audit. We must know where exactly we are and where are we going wrong in case of our accounting system. So we ensured that there is a fiscal discipline to the extent of even internal audit, and it was reviewed very strongly. So this is another area that we need to work on as a company. Third is, the most important point, which is a big gray area. A lot of people believe in, laterally expanding. Diversification was a buzzword once upon a time, but even lateral expansion. Sometimes you need to be wise enough to understand why should I do this lateral, whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense. For example, a lot of our companies bought trucks, and it was a very common thing to buy your own trucks under your own company so that you could give that additional efficiency in terms of. But our experience is you are not good at trucking business. You are good at one, A or B, but you can't be very good in both. So we decided that you are better off by outsourcing the trucking business. And we had very, very detailed discussion before we took this decision. 70% of the big guys in our business had their own trucks. And most of it happened was, most of them were sitting either dealing with drivers or they were dealing with garages, and they had useless time wasted on trucking. And the efficiency was compromised. There was a lot of, good time wasted on the trucking part of the business. And because they bought it over, they had to sustain it, and it was difficult to sustain it in bad times. So this, my friend, is a very important, crucial point that all of us need to consider when we are expanding. And I'm very, very happy to say that we did wisely as far as that decision is concerned. And we did not enter into a single truck under our own balance sheet. It was all outsourced, but to a good company. We selected our people very well. We selected the truckers very well. We knew that the background of the company, we knew the truckers, we knew the quality of the trucks that they kept, and could they be trusted with the volume of business that we are dealing. Would they be trusted to deliver the same good cargo? There could be infiltration on the system, right? From an outsourced guy, he could be taking out material. There could be problems with you on that point. So these are few areas that we had to consider, but we finally won, and we were very happy to have outsourced to a good trucking company. The other thing is, the final point, main point, I keep on saying that in our business of service, it is service, 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 nothing but service, which is the only parameter of a good logistic company. Everywhere what matters is the service that you provide. And the buzz tagline that we said, quality service given at a reasonable price. This was the tagline that we used for selling our company to people. And that's what we stuck to, and we understand that it helped a lot. And we were one of those people who understood things at the end of the customer, because I also had an experience and exposure during my internship with the company, and I was fortunately part of the materials department. So I knew the value of raw material arriving in time and being dispatched in time, exports going out of the factory in time. So all these things also helped me to understand a customer and design my parameters accordingly, and it helped a lot. So look at a customer in detail always, because that will be an area where you will go a long way to handle. And now with a little bit of scenario that is changing every day, data is the only thing that is, I mean, as somebody said, change. I think Suresh Babu said, change is something which is happening at a very, very fast pace. The speed in which change is happening is unbelievable. And especially in terms of data, in terms of computerization, in terms of artificial intelligence, we have not even touched the little even tip of the iceberg as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. But the way you see things happening is unbelievable. And it is not very far before we see a whole plethora of changes that is going to happen in business. Look at this pandemic. What has it taught us? I mean, who ever thought that we would be sitting at homes and conducting such a large meeting today and listening to so many people, their views? It's all change that has happened because of circumstances. The volume of office space available in Mumbai city has increased substantially. There is no taker because there's no office going people, including our past president, Vocard Pharmaceuticals, such a large company operating from home. Very few people in that office are called home. I mean, going to the office, only limited, maybe not even 10%. This is the future in which we will have to live with. This is going to continue. And how do I deliver despite all these odds is something that we have learned over this 1 year of pandemic. And this is where our scenarios will keep changing. We will have to adapt to a situation of change, and things will change dramatically. Government, semi-government bodies have now started computerizing their own system very well. And we have come to a scenario where even a Department of Customs and Clearances and Excise and everybody is highly computerized. And today, what took 5 man days is now being done by 1 single man day. That is the efficiency which has come in because of electronic interface. And this is going to keep improving by the day. And there will be a time where once upon a time we used to say, in Canada, we do it in half an hour. In America, we do it in half an hour. We are not very far, my friends, where we will be speaking the same language. Look at banking. Babu just said whatever he had to say, but look at banking. Have you ever gone to a bank? I don't remember going to a bank for the last 10, 15 years. There's a time when your check will be a dud thing. You will not have to write a single check. It's happening very soon. I think it's just about a few months or just waiting for an announcement. No checks. Everything will be online. All your payments that you receive, all your payments that you give will be all on the system. So checks will be out totally and not allowed as an instrument of payment, which will be an RBI direction that is coming very soon. So these are the scenarios which are happening at breakneck speed. And my request to all of you is make sure that you get in, fit in yourself very well in this, and things that you never imagined. And we are not far. People say, India mein to samay lagega. Electronic car, electrical vehicles. People are saying, where are the stations? Where is the electricity? We are going to be surplus electricity in Mumbai. We are going to be surplus. Whoever thought of it? 2 months ago, I was talking to somebody, where is the electricity? Where are the stations? It is not far away, my friends. It's happening at breakneck speed. You will be surprised the kind of infrastructure that's happening and being built. Finally, I know we are running out of time, so I will close with my few thoughts which I've just shared. And just these 2 liners to close my talk. नींद नहीं, sleep. नींद नहीं, ख्वाब बदलते हैं. मंजिल नहीं, कारवां बदलता है. I hope everybody can understand. I can translate if you want. नींद नहीं, ख्वाब बदलते हैं. मंजिल नहीं, कारवां बदलता है. जज्बा रखो हमेशा जीतने का, क्योंकि तकदीर बदले या ना बदले, वक्त जरूर बदलता है. And that is what I was talking about, waqt. Remember it. Good luck to you all, my friends, and wish you very, very Godspeed in everything that you do. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. It was our privilege to have you, and truly very, very inspirational. And I think a couple of things which you said were just so very critical. Value added services that we can provide, and you demonstrated it step by step as to how it could be done in the company. The importance of faith, quality, discipline in all processes. And let's always remember what you just said, that time will always follow you, provided you take the right decisions. It was wonderful listening to you, sir.
Thank you.
It is a blessing that we could have you here this evening in our midst to inspire so many of our young participants, entrepreneurs, every one of them who has done the right things at the right time. And that's where waqt waqt ki baat hai, as you were rightly saying. I'd like to thank everybody who attended this conclave. Sometimes digital programs tend to be those which bring in people from all over the country because it's digital. And I think that's been the great advantage today. I'm happy to share that we had over 96 participants through this 3-hour journey that all of us participated in, listening in to different perspectives, different views. On behalf of BMA, I'd like to thank Mr. Vijay Jalan first, Suresh, Babu, both of them stalwarts in their own way for setting the right piece of advice to all the youngsters, all our distinguished speakers, panelists, for their sharing straight from the heart. As we always do, please put on your videos for a group photograph that we do on the BMA digital platform so that we can capture your smiles. Many of you who've been coming to our programs regularly would be happy to see yourselves on the BMA social media pages where we host all the event reports. Thank you so much for being part of yet another program that we have tried to bring to you. As Mr. Jalan rightly said, who would have imagined that we would have a year when BMA would be delivering every one of its programs digitally? We started on April 1, and it was not an April Fool's joke. It was something very serious. And I must tell you that over the next 3 days, we have yet another series of 3 events for you. Come Friday, for the first time, we are having a digital book launch by the very eminent Walter Vieira, who is known as India's consulting guru. And he has written a book on customer value starvation, along with a colleague, Gautam Mahajan. And this book is going to be released by none other than Mr. Damodaran, ex-SEBI chairman. Join us Friday evening for this very special program. Saturday morning, we have a very interesting session as part of our Leaders Speak series, where Deepali Nair, Chief Marketing Officer for IBM India and South Asia, is going to speak about digital marketing as part of a special program that BMA is running along with JBIMS on Leader Next. The same day, a little later, we have a special program for academicians in association with the Higher Education Forum, where we are talking about the future of education. Next 3 days, as I said, special programs, all details up on the website. And on 31st March, which is next Wednesday, we have the honor of having with us Dr. R. Chidambaram, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India and the Prime Minister's Office, former Chairman of Bhabha Atomic Research Center. He will be talking to us about sustainable development to build a knowledge economy. These are the 4 special programs as we go through the BMA digital learning journey. Our digital team, Lakshmi, Oindrila, Supriya, and Deepa, all of them from the BMA Secretariat, are now Atmanirbhar digital photographers. We don't need to call anybody from outside. Thank you so much, the team, for doing such a wonderful job. Thank you, everyone, for being with us through this learning journey over the last 10 to 12 months. May I say, stay safe, stay blessed. Shubh Ratri. Thank you very much. Namaskar.